पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जा मानस जन्म का एही लाह पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जा मानस जन्म का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद पूल मात जा मानस जन्म का एही लाह.
Welcome friends to another podcast in the Holy Truth series, given as always in the name of the Supreme Lord, who once again wishes to impart the very highest spiritual truth of what many call God, life and creation to the sincere seekers of the world, especially for the modern age. That's further supported by the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of Sant today. Now this high truth of the ages is the noble path of Sant, or path of the true saints, also known as the universal truth, true spirituality or true religion, that is so graciously gifted to seeking humanity by the great holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics in every age, who are themselves the true representative of the Supreme Lord even today. Although little known among the masses, once encountered, a sincere truth seeker can easily recognize that this noble path or true way encompasses all true faiths and beliefs as the noble source of all, details of which can be found in our humble literature, spiritual centers or YouTube channel, as well as in the Holy Discourse series of ISTAuk.com. But before I begin today's session of spiritual questions and answers, I would first like to make a short introduction about who we are and what we represent here today. We are the International Spiritual Truth Association, or ISTA for short, and although now global, we originally set up in 2016 in the UK by request of the Holy Masters of the day, who derived their authority from Great Master Baba Savan Singh Ji of the holy lineage of Sant in India, the Levant and Persia. Now our given mission is simple: to tell the full truth about true spirituality or true religion from the Supreme Lord's point of view, especially for the modern age, while also correcting the confusions of the past and even that of the present about what is the real truth. Yet this high teaching is not new. It is an age-old path of true spirituality, known today as the Holy Truth of Sant, which in fact has been discreetly taught throughout the ages to the most sincere seekers of the time, alongside the more familiar religious or philosophical teachings that we all know of. Indeed, Holy Masters tell us that the simple teachings of mass religion and mass philosophy are only there to elevate the masses to the position of higher truth seeking, so that they can understand and ultimately practice true spirituality or true religion. Therefore, our mission here today is simple: to impart the very highest truth of the Supreme Lord to those who wish to know, with all the love, grace and wonder that such a gift entails. Now for those who do listen and take heed, Holy Masters tell us that they are indeed the most fortunate ones of humanity. As for myself, I am a sincere devotee of the very highest truth of Sant, who has given his life in the service of the true Lord. As such, I do not seek any recognition, praise or reward, as I only act with the authority and by request of the Supreme Lord itself and the Holy Masters of today, to simply tell the full truth of God, life and creation for the modern age. I humbly speak, therefore, as one who has been gifted with true knowledge of that high truth, and as one who lives in the Supreme Lord's will. Thus I offer my humble demonstration and knowledge to all who seek the same. Now, as a friend on this noble path to God realization, I only ask that you put aside my human form, and instead listen to and take heed of the loving message that the Supreme Lord has to offer you via this humble form, who has himself been transformed by the Holy Masters of today. Thus I represent the proof that truly anyone can rise above their given karmic role, to become truly noble once again, by the true Lord's grace, if only they earnestly seek it. Therefore, everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom direct from the true Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high spiritual truth. In this way, I am a humble servant and a perfect friend, whom the true Lord has gifted with direct knowledge of the holy truth which I have been asked to share with you. So although I shall speak with the authority of one who has been instructed to do so by the Supreme Lord, please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble servant in any way, for you too are all divine beings undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely by the highest authority, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy truth that the Supreme Lord has to offer you. Now, for those who need further assistance, they may privately contact the main speaker directly via email or video by first subscribing to our valuable information service at ISTAuk.com and then requesting the direct contact details of our main speaker from our administrators. He will endeavour to answer all spiritual questions within 48 hours of receipt, but please be patient if he should take a little longer due to his busy schedule and sheer number of inquiries. Thank you. So let's now begin with the general question and answer session from our spiritual truth seekers as well as the audience.
Thank you. So the theme for these questions is, what is the true role of the Holy Masters? I've got a few questions relating to perfect living masters. First question, what is a perfect living master, and what are the traits we can recognise, and can you name some that we might not be familiar with?
Okay, well, this is an important question, no doubt, for sincere truth seekers around the world. Therefore, I would like to give a comprehensive and truthful reply. But before I begin, however, since the objective here is to represent the very highest spiritual truth for those who truly wish to know, it is very helpful to first explain what is actually meant by the very highest spiritual truth, seeking the very highest spiritual truth, in connection with finding a true holy master of our time. Now, unlike the world of science or of material living, where there is only one version of the truth, dimensionally speaking, in the world of spirituality, there are many levels of consciousness or dimensions of existence, each with its own unique laws and truth pertaining to that level. Now, if we understand that there are 9 levels of consciousness or existence in the entire creation, as explained by the true holy masters past and present, then the laws that apply to one level cannot naturally apply to a higher or lower level of existence, That's common sense. Nevertheless, the realms of consciousness or existence beyond our physical world are not readily understood by worldly observers, and so such observers rely purely upon theory, myth, parables or metaphors, etc., to explain it to them. And this form of explanation can naturally lead to misunderstandings or misinterpretations, misguidance, or simple delusion by unenlightened inquirers, as is found in many religious scriptures penned in worldly language by historic scholars, which are claimed to represent the spiritual truth. But when we in Sant or the Supreme Lord talks about the very highest spiritual truth, we are referring to that truth which originates from the ninth plus realm of existence in the grand scheme of creation. Anything lower than this is a partial truth of increasing deficiency as one descends, till it becomes far removed from anything resembling higher spiritual truth, as is found today among ordinary individuals perceiving existence via their 5 sense organs alone. However, this is not the ultimate means to know reality. In brief, for those who don't already know, the entire creation, meaning existence, is manifested from differing levels of consciousness with a capital C, known otherwise as God, Buddhahood, Word, Nad, Shabbat, or Al-Haq, etc. Since this consciousness or Supreme Lord is the only entity that actually exists in all levels of creation, in different forms, the core of which is the indestructible high truth, of which your soul is also a part. Now this supreme or primal consciousness is also known as divine light and sound, or the Supreme Lord, in true religion or true spirituality. For this reason, various mass religions, philosophies, sciences, and spirituality, in human terms, refer to the manifested levels of this consciousness as realms, heavens, levels of awareness, dimensions of existence, etc., in their literature. Indeed, each truth-seeking discipline prefers its own term and meaning. But regardless of this, all acknowledge that physical reality is not the only reality in all of existence. Lesser known, however, and unknown to current science, is the fact that each level of reality or existence below the third realm is inhabited by certain entities or special souls that can descend to lower levels by assuming the form of a lower level being, known to us as a karmic holy visitor, such as those specifically termed holy teachers, prophets, seers, saints, sages, munis, avatars, godmen, maharishis, sadhus, pandits, yogis, acharyas, lamas, karmapas, rinpoches, dorje lopons, arhans, aharis, arhats, chakravartis, oshos, patriarchs, madis, beers and biranis, mujahids, hakams, marans, zaddiqs, popes, dasturus, shamans, sensais, high priests and priestesses, philosophers, esoteric leading scientists, and so on. I hope I've covered every form of explanation of the type of people that consider themselves to be teachers of higher truth. So you can see that each culture has their own version of description for these individuals, which describe learned ones from higher to lower levels of attainment, who always follow, though, the natural karmic laws of the level of our world, even if they don't emphasize this in their teachings. Such beings, though they are magical to us here on earth, can't enter higher realities from the third realm to the fifth realm of existence. So these are the karmic holy visitors I'm referring to that live and dwell in the world of karma. So they cannot enter higher realities by their own power, since these higher existences are unattainable for them without undergoing a special transformation. Now this transformation is called becoming the disciple of a higher truth-seeking path in the physical realm, such as that known as Sant, mysticism, or similar. Therefore, these karmic holy visitors can simply offer the much famed introductory or religious paths for the less sincere or unready masses, from the level of tribal animism or folklore to the more structured polytheistic religions of complex rituals and ceremonies. To the club-like or monotheistic religions that approach greater truth, to finally reach the intellectual distraction of the more self-determination ideals of modern philosophy and science, but never high truth spirituality itself, for they simply come to introduce the unready masses to basic spiritual or truth-seeking ideas as part of the Supreme Lord's grand plan of gradual involvement of creation. However, this process also allows some of these followers to go on to become serious truth seekers and thus seek higher truth as a result. This means that the karmic holy visitors come to earth to play an important role in the spiritual journey of ordinary truth seekers, by helping them to become interested in and thus develop deep truth-seeking concepts within their hearts. Now these introductory or lesser paths properly encompass folklore, religion, science, philosophy, and general spirituality, which are all known to us. Lesser known, again, is the mysterious path of true spirituality, known as true religion, or the holy truth of Sant or mysticism, which represents the highest truth available for human beings today, as described by the other, much rarer and unique, supreme holy visitors to earth, affectionately known as holy masters, perfect saints, or noble mystics, etc., who all descend from at least the fifth realm of consciousness, known as the Kingdom of Truth, Supreme Lord, or Satgurus, which is the true origin of all souls below the fifth realm, including our own, for the purpose of true salvation or liberation, and not for judgment, as with the karmic holy visitors. Therefore, they descend from much higher realms than the karmic visitors come from, and therefore their purpose is different. It's not one of teaching, but one of salvation. Higher realms than this, though, beyond the fifth realm, do exist. For example, the 6 to the 9 plus, though rarely mentioned, but are only obtained from the fifth realm of existence itself. And so their brief mention here, for example, is for information purposes only. Now the titles awarded to such high-level holy visitors from the fifth realm of existence or above include Holy Master, Perfect Saint, Noble Mystic, Sant Satguru, as well as the affectionate terms of Swamiji, Babaji, Hazur Maharaji, Mulana, Murshid, Hakam Maran, etc. However, some of the other holy visitors of religion, philosophy, or science do copy these specific titles to esteem their own beliefs. So we're talking here about the karmic holy visitors who use the same names to validate their teachings. But they're not the same order as these rare holy visitors to earth I just mentioned. They instead refer to mere honorific titles rather than actual titles. So one may hear the term Baba, Swami, Sadguru, Guru, Saint, Fakir, Sheikh, sir, etc., but they're not of the same level as the rare holy visitors to earth from the fifth realm upwards, and are indeed often spelled slightly differently, or are part complete in phrase or usage to demonstrate this fact. So indeed, for those seeking true religion or true spirituality, the diversity of spiritual or philosophical teachers available today is a minefield of confusion. But I hope to have clarified some of the differences today, with no disrespect intended for those teachers or visitors who come to play their specific role in the Supreme Lord's grand plan. All are necessary in this diverse world of learning and seeking, so as to cater for all the levels of comprehension, ability, desire or belief that exists in the current age, much like a spiritual school on earth. Now, going back to one's own level of individual awareness, the level of desire for a higher truth beyond the physical can range from one's attachment to temporary physicality or one's desire to simply follow the judgment game of karmic retribution justice, while a few rarer others want to know the highest truth of everything for sure, to make sense of their lives and the world around them in the surest manner. Therefore, according to the level of truth-seeking, holy visitors come to impart a certain level of teaching to match the level of each individual's or cultural or society's desire for true satisfaction. Since divine law states that a holy visitor cannot change the will of the peoples they visit or serve, only help them to attain their chosen level of spiritual desire in line with their level of spiritual comprehension. Although certain holy visitors can introduce higher teachings for those rare individuals who truly wish to know among the masses. Hence, we see certain differences in the teachings across the ages, from low to high. Now, this is where the controversy starts, since human beings are born for the ego fulfillment of their past life desires, and so most are not actually seeking the highest truth, which for them is just too difficult or too bland for their taste. But instead, they seek comfort in popular mass followings, such as science, philosophy or religion, etc., to match their needs or level of inquiry. Yet still, they proclaim that their own belief system, whether religious, philosophical or scientific, etc., is the highest and greatest of them all. In this regard, conflicts arise where none should really exist, if all were truly seekers of the highest truth. Hence the divisions we see today in belief systems. For most, sadly, mass ritual worship, ceremony and exclusiveness are more appealing than solitary devotion to the Lord's highest truth through silent meditation and pious moral living, for they are still undergoing their journey of illusory experience in creation, and are thus not yet ready to truly leave it and go back to the highest truth of their origin, with all the wonder and marvel that that involves. This is the position of mainstream humanity today, where more recently, due to simple ignorance about true spirituality or true religion, spiritual science, worldly science and mindful philosophy now appeal to those who feel that a more intellectual or earthly approach is for them. But what about the need of high truth seekers? Well, by understanding what has just been explained of the different levels of truth seekers and truth teachers, one can now understand the higher truth purpose of human existence and of the great salvation role of the true holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics who visit our world in every age, rather than the karmic holy visitors who only give teachings of how to perform well in the karmic cycle that is mostly unknown to the general masses. So let me start by summarizing the true teachings of the highest and rare holy visitors to earth, so that all can recognize them. Known to history and to legend as the true representatives of the Supreme Lord in every age, the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics, who are indeed the true saviours of humanity. If one is fortunate enough to become a real, meaning sincere, high truth seeker in his lifetime, and is able to actively pursue that high truth despite their karmic or given circumstances, that they are the most fortunate of human beings, no matter what their background may be, or whatever belief system or status in life they may inherently possess. For they have recognized the real secret of all existence and the real purpose of human birth, of truth and love and bliss that accompany such things. Thus they are able to unburden themselves from the illusion of physical and mental limitations by reconnecting themselves via their conscious awareness to their own high truth of the soul within themselves, as taught by the mysteriously enlightened living examples of the holy truth, known to us as the Holy Masters, perfect saints or noble mystics of their time, and so are able to just live moment by moment, day by day, in the true Lord's will, without real worry, stress or doubt, while spending every moment they can in divine absorption and in enjoyment of this high truth, whether in thought, deed, meditation or deep contemplation. Thus for them, their human existence is not lived in vain. Such ones are indeed the most fortunate of all human beings on earth, despite what others may think of them in ignorance. Indeed, sincere pursuers of this high truth should earnestly seek the company of the truly enlightened ones, without care or concern for others' opinion, because such opinions lead nowhere other than to karmic entrapment, while the earnest truth seeker earns spiritual merit or grace that allows divine intervention to take place by following the high truth, which can also rescue them from the trauma of mundane worldly existence and struggle, thus beginning their newly enchanted or blessed adventure in life of miracle, wonder, gratitude and peace of mind, etc. Such fortunate ones follow their given karmic script, known as destiny, in full recognition of its defining role in karmic existence, without attaching much importance to it all, thus fulfilling their given role, whether good or bad as others see it, as the Lord's will for them, for that is all they can do. And by knowing this, they do not concern themselves with the opinions or judgments of the unaware others, who may even seek to harm them as a result. They just keep strong faith in their heart and confidence that the true Lord or Master will protect them. Yet again, only those whose state of mind is ready for all this will recognize the significance of what has just been said, and in so doing are being prepared for such good fortune themselves. Such an extraordinary individual is not subject to judgments, mood swings, delusion or ego, even under extreme tests, and as such is worth pursuing and in keeping as company, for they lend support and wisdom to those who wish the same in their heart. We call such a blessed life of harmony and wisdom an enchanted existence, for such individuals live a magical life filled with subtle yet powerful protection, miracles and blessings, etc., greater than any king, celebrity or the wealthy could ever hope for. This is made possible because the true Lord, as opposed to the lower gods, is not a judge, only a forgiver, filled with merciful love for those who earnestly pursue the high truth, no matter where they come from or how the world sees them. Yet individual differences of opinion depends solely upon comprehension. Indeed, everything we see as human beings is simply a reflection of our own state of mind, presented as thoughts in a material form. It is therefore the observer who determines the meaning behind their seeing, and not the events themselves. Events are just events, without fixed meaning, while a meaning or interpretation is added by the observer. And yes, some events are more distressing than others when looking at satisfying our basic human need for safety, love, food, shelter, clothes, and peace, etc. But mostly, it is not that which plagues us. It's just a case of wanton desire, rather than essential need not being met, that is actually cried about in life, causing them illusory or self-made misery. Yet some human beings do have a harder existence than others, due to their heavy karmas or Lord's will for them. But even in all this, the individual experience should not be wasted. Instead of fretting, if they could attach themselves to the high truth of it all, which naturally detaches them from the lower base thinking, then even heavy karma can be worked through with relative ease, while suffering itself is not without purpose. Suffering is a great teacher, the greatest of teachers in fact, since it forces one to turn away from the wastefulness of worldly pursuits and directs them towards higher thinking and inquiry. Therefore, no matter what is one's background or past, when the calling comes from within to pursue the path of higher truth, then one must answer that call earnestly in order to establish a greater meaning and purpose to one's life that is beneficial to them. This is the true mystery of it all. Now, going back to the actual role and recognition of a true holy master or perfect saint, everything I have shared with you thus far is the same as that taught by these rare holy visitors to earth themselves, who all impart the higher truth of the Supreme Lord, known to us as the holy truth of Sant or holy path of the saints. But how does one recognize a true holy master who has the authority to rescue real truth seekers from this world of delusion and entrapment, from those who may claim or be considered the same, but are not in truth? Well, the truly enlightened ones and the true holy masters themselves point the way. Hence I shall list today the specifics of the matter for all to know, so that the inquirer can decide for themselves about who meets the Supreme Lord's criteria for being a holy master, perfect saint, or noble mystic. Indeed, there are 7 points to consider historically that have been historically used and proposed when approaching the subject from a human perspective. But apart from these, a decisive fact to note is simply this: were they officially given the authority by a current holy master, perfect saint, or noble mystic, by way of public announcement or document, etc., which firmly settles the matter if this is the case. Now, although this is not always the case, its deed is conclusive. However, if that's not the case, then the 7 historic determining factors, termed 7 holy requirements, have to be considered. First of these is the manner in which the proposed holy master currently lives their life, meaning at the time of their claim. For example, do they follow the strict moral code of right conduct, right speech, and right knowledge? Now, it must be explained that when considering this point, the master's past should not come into account, since many colourful historic figures became enlightened after a dodgy past through the Lord's glancing transformation, where prior to their enlightenment they fulfilled the Lord's karmic plan for them, whatever that may have been, just to show that anyone can change and succeed if they sincerely yearn for high true salvation. even if they were considered a villain prior to that. Only certain past actions are counted as eliminating factors, since they are too grave to be overcome in one lifetime. These include all acts of wanton violence, murder, rape, a relish in inciting hate or willful, not accidental harm upon others, willfully obstructing holy masters, willfully or knowingly obstructing humanitarians or devotees from pursuing that holy truth, or from helping the environment, the willful cheating of others from the hard-earned funds, home, livelihood or sustenance, etc. However, since everything is in the hands of the Supreme Lord, there is no judgment on the Lord's part for all of this, but certainly the Lord does not wish to distress truth seekers by presenting to them a hardcore villain as a successor, unless there is a very, very good reason to do so. Nevertheless, this is just one factor to consider, as all 7 criteria must be met in order to be sure of the matter. The second key point to note is the classic one of prophecy. This means that a true holy master has the innate ability to foresee things that are yet to come, or to know things that ordinary individuals would not be able to know. If this is not the case, then the claimant cannot be all-knowing. The third important point is that of balance, forgiveness and compassion. If the proposed holy master loses their balance when faced with difficulties, accusations or threats, etc., then such a one cannot be of the highest order. Indeed, if they are subject to fear, mood swings, anger, judgment, enticements, gluttony, greed, favoritism or pride, etc., then such a one has not risen above the level of base emotions, and so still operates in the karmic world, no matter what their excuse. Fourthly, do they project feelings of genuine love, compassion and kindness to all who come before them, and to the general public at large, even to non-believers or critics, without pretense? If so, then such a one is at least truly enlightened beyond the karmic realms. Fifthly, do they set themselves up as or claim to be a holy master, perfect saint or noble mystic, and thus promote themselves as such by their own will, or the will of others, their followers, due to their followers' need to have such a figure, and thus put themselves on a pedestal above the rest, whereby the assumed holy master relishes that position without resistance? Then they cannot be anything more than a mere spiritual teacher, or a little advanced disciple, but incomplete spiritual practitioner. No true holy master, perfect saint or noble mystic ever takes on such a heavy load lightly, because of the serious consequence of doing so to their soul and to that of their followers, and certainly do not promote themselves as such publicly, by making out to be something more than they truly are. Now, sixthly, are they able to answer any question brought before them with confidence, depth of knowledge and surety? Or do they stumble, fob off inquiries with waffle, or show no personal knowledge of the matter other than that of common knowledge? And finally, seventh check. Do they exhibit a true, unambiguous and consistent knowledge of all the realms, up to the 5th and perhaps beyond, without merely parroting what others have said, or without making up stories from what they may believe to be true, but which does not stand the test of real scrutiny, nor compares to the true holy masters, past or present, actual testimony? Now, if this test of 7 holy requirements is not all passed, then they cannot be a true holy master, perfect saint or noble mystic, but can, of course, be a respected spiritual teacher, saintly aspirant or philosopher, etc. In fact, when using this historic method of human level testing, one can more clearly determine who is and who is not a true holy master, perfect saint or noble mystic of the age. Indeed, Through this testing, one will see that such a true Holy One is a very rare occurrence in this world, while other spiritual leaders and teachers are relatively abundant. Yet I do recognize the need that some people have to follow someone they like as a person, who also speaks with some knowledge of spiritual matters, and is in a position to present themselves to the public at large as some sort of saviour. But this does not qualify them as a holy master, etc. Therefore, for a real true seeker, not led by emotions, but by deep intuition, they will always apply this test to be sure. Even if their heart may pull them in one direction or another, since their emotions are mere karmic, mind-level connections, and not anything more in reality. So, however, it must be remembered here that even if their proposed holy master, etc., fails the test, it doesn't mean they are unhelpful or a bad person or unknowingly misleading others. It just means that they cannot actually save or wholly initiate spiritually awaken others to the fifth realm level. Only teach spiritual matters and perhaps ceremoniously connect disciples who are currently drawn to them. Furthermore, there do exist holy masters in the waiting, who are masters themselves, meaning have attained at least the third to the fifth realm level of a creation, with full knowledge thereof, but are not given authority to save others yet, other than to help them on their spiritual journey, till some later date when things may change. Such an honest, discreet master in waiting, however, will still pass the 7 holy requirements test, or at least 6 of them, as they may still be undergoing their own evolutionary journey, and not necessarily be at the 5th level or above of creation. As such, they would put themselves forward as a holy master, etc., but not as a perfect holy master. But mostly they do not put themselves forward at all, till absolute authority is given to them by the Supreme Lord or their own holy master, etc. And even then, would discreetly do so, despite any past karmic history or worldly status associated with them. It must be further explained, though, that a spiritual master, saint or mystic, etc., can be anything from 3rd level to 5th level of spiritual attainment, with true holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics being of the highest order. In conclusion, then, these are certainly difficult concepts to grasp at first, but a real true seeker, meaning that rare extraordinary individual who dares to challenge current thinking by unconditionally seeking the ultimate truth of God, life and creation, no matter what the outcome or consequence, will have the comprehension to do so. For others, they can only follow their heart and pursue what they think is best until higher awareness comes within them. Meanwhile, without disrespect to anyone, it must be said that for those who set themselves up as a holy master by acting as such, letting themselves be addressed as a holy master, collecting disciples, initiating followers, etc., in full knowledge of their lack of qualification, meaning the 7 holy requirements, to do so, then their fate is sealed, and they, plus their followers, will have to come back to the material world to suffer another trial, at best, or that master may even have to visit hell for a short while to cleanse their ego before continuing their spiritual journey in another birth. Indeed, this is a very serious business from the Supreme Lord's point of view. This is why true holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics sternly warn against such egotistic activities. On a lighter note, let's move on to the wondrous yet discreet way that a true holy master serves truth-seeking humanity, as opposed to other holy visitors. Well, firstly, because true holy masters, etc., all descend from the purely spiritual realms, meaning 3rd, known as Sants, to 5th, known as Satgurus. they have no karma or retribution of their own to account for, and so are unaffected by the tool of the mind, body, and senses, over which they have perfect mastery. However, this also means that they have no reason or excuse to descend into the karmic realms, and so must borrow an appropriate karmic body to exist on earth, since the natural law of creation must be obeyed, even by them. Therefore, they do so by liberating the former proposed occupant of a chosen body, who is due to be born into this world in a certain manner and a certain location, by sending them back home to the true kingdom of God, the Supreme Lord, in gratitude, thus taking on that body with all the karmas that come along with it. Meanwhile, other lower holy masters, etc., who are masters in the making, descend in normal karmic fashion, with a predestined body and role to play out, till they become liberated while living in this world by the true holy master of the time. This latter category, though still rare in comparison to the karmic judgment holy visitors mentioned earlier, bring many variations and colourful figures onto the path of mastership, simply to show normal human beings that it is perfectly possible for a sincere truth-seeking human being to attain true liberation while living in a human form, despite their past, provided they have the sincere will to do so, and therefore are prepared to make the relevant choices or minor sacrifices to complete their noble objective. This latter category of holy masters are the ones we can encounter more readily, as they initially live among us as seemingly normal human beings. Indeed, who is better placed to aid struggling truth seekers than those who have succeeded in their lifetime from perhaps a turbulent or difficult past? Meanwhile, the former category of truly perfect holy masters, etc., will always be born to a noble spiritual family, who has a long tradition of serving the former holy masters, etc., or is from the lineage of former holy masters themselves. As such, they are largely perfect from birth, yet more discreet and remote, and with greater restrictions to access them. Thus, each type has a role to play in human society, and indeed, they do so with the inner joy of service, regardless of how the world sees them. This is why some holy masters, the lower ones in particular, may go through turmoil before reaching mastership, while others, the perfect ones, are recognized from a young age and live a noble life throughout, yet both can save you just the same. Now, one question that immediately arises from this understanding is, how can an imperfect being become sufficiently perfect to the point that they become a holy master in their lifetime? It's an interesting emotional view, yet perfectly logical in its spiritual answer. The trouble with most or limited human understanding is that they are often intellectually or emotionally biased regarding their reasoning. The truth is that everyone is born with a societal identity in the current age, and by being labelled so, they are often forced to carry that identity for the rest of their life, whether it is called class, caste, race, gender, or religion, etc. Now, in terms of mastership, if a sinner or even a villain, for example, becomes a saint or a holy master, etc., at some point in their life, then society will often apply their view of a fixed identity to that now transformed individual, and thus sadly shun or reject their newfound transformation status by continuing to label them with the identity of their past, just as the unenlightened, negatively biased masses do with everyone else, even in the 21st century of so-called human advancement. Yet this type of reasoning is actually illogical, which, if followed through to its ultimate conclusion, becomes nonsensical, as it disallows for any possibility of change, progress, improvement, or transformation, etc., in any human being, giving no hope to humanity. Therefore, the concept of current identity itself has to be examined and better understood to match observation. For example, when we were 5 years old, we all had a certain way about us, certain beliefs or certain habits, etc., that are no longer present today. Yet what if we were all judged by our 5-year-old identity instead of our current adult identity? As ridiculous as this may seem when pointed out this way, then why do we not think that even a truth-seeking villain can be transformed into a saint at any point in their life through the loving grace of the Almighty Lord, if the true Lord is all-powerful, as the scriptures tell us, just because it is not commonplace? Well, this is a problem still faced today, by which the foolish public judge the world and themselves, saying that they are not good enough to be chosen for transformation. Yet, regardless of this belief, this loving transformation does happen, and several masters of the past attained salvation this way, though many sadly suffered the same ridicule of past identity judgment and even persecution. What's more, if the spiritually aware, who should know better, also subscribe to this emotionally negative mass view of fixed identity for all, then by that illogical view, no one can be transformed in their lifetime to become a better, more noble human being, whether as a pillar of society, a disciple, a saint or master, etc. Is that really so? Well, obviously not. Yet still today, most people, including unenlightened initiates of a holy master, blindly follow this emotionally biased view, which is sadly a product of the feeble minds of the ignorant masses, as a result of intellectual brainwashing by the spiritually deprived society they belong to, that's brought about through generations of misinformation. And sadly for us today, this is now reinforced by the cunning mass social media, who purposefully and systematically report mostly negative news or fear-mongering, ignoring the good of individual self-improvement, self-empowerment, etc., thus promoting the mass pessimism or misery that many societies now embrace as the norm. Therefore, truthful counter-information, such as this satsang or holy discourse, should be lovingly distributed too, so as to let fair-minded individuals broaden their knowledge base with the idea of testing the truth for themselves. This is why all true holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics, past and present, shun summary judgment or harsh condemnation, and instead replace this with vivek, meaning right discernment through true knowledge, telling us to discern any occurrence or viewpoint we encounter through using our own personal experience and intuitive wisdom, not through hearsay or an emotionally biased mass belief, for everything is in the hands of the true Lord as the drama of our own mysterious life unfolds. Looking now at the true role of a holy master, perfect saint or noble mystic, whether of the lower or higher order, there is a marked difference between them and the karmic holy visitors to earth mentioned earlier. For example, unlike the more familiar karmic holy visitors, who primarily come to restore dharma, meaning righteous living, and occasionally save fallen humans from hell, through primarily teaching earthly rituals and dogma, or mindfulness ideas, true holy masters come to collect the marked souls, who are the sincere truth seekers of the time, and take them back to their true home in the kingdom of truth or Supreme Lord, comforting and protecting them throughout, while leaving some non-scriptural holy truth teachings behind for future generations to seek the same. They do not look at the character of the individual concerned, only at the stage of their spiritual journey through creation to see if they're marked to be rescued in this particular lifetime. At first, both types of holy visitor may appear to offer the same higher than physical moral teachings, but the end goal is not the same. Karmic holy visitors only offer temporary salvation within the karmic heaven, paradise or nirvana as the ultimate goal for their followers, or a better society to live in for the rest, using judgment and austerity as their means, while true holy masters, etc., offer a true and complete salvation from all karmic consequences or limitations, by empowering the high truth-seeking followers to break free from the karmic bonds of the body and mind realms, through simple pious living and truth-seeking meditation, so as to earn the grace needed to go back to their true home, the soul's true origin in the highest kingdom of God, far beyond the realms of the karmic heavens, etc., and all under the perfect guidance and protection of the loving and forgiving, non-judgmental Holy Master, etc. For this grace, there is no need to recite or follow complex scripture or ritual, no need to suffer harsh austerities, no need to form divisive or elitist religions or cults, and no need to segregate themselves from mainstream humanity, such as becoming monks or nuns, etc. Indeed, the only requirement is to become a sincere high truth seeker, and then a true devotee of the living holy representative of that high truth, known as the Holy Master, etc., of their time. For all else will be taken care of by the true Lord freely, which is a much better and easier path to follow, I would say. To help further with all this, let me briefly explain about the supporting role of the imperfect or lower masters, which many confuse with the truly perfect holy masters of their time, by clarifying thus. The true role of the lower holy masters or enlightened ones is to support, not replace, the true holy master, etc. of their time, plus offer helpful support and guidance to the true seekers and disciples alike, in absence of the physical presence of the perfect holy master, etc. Furthermore, the lower or imperfect masters are appointed by the true holy masters themselves, etc., for this role, and are not to be confused by the myriad of holy teachers that set themselves up as helpers or saviours of humanity without higher authority. Now it must be said that most of these holy teachers mean well and may even have gained some progress along the spiritual path. Hence they can help others up to their level of attainment or comprehension, but no further. Other teachers, meanwhile, sadly act out of ego, wanting to become recognized as something above the norm, and so push themselves forward in that way, but cannot truly help anyone. Instead, they often charge for their various services, and thus get rich, which is great for them, but not for their deluded lost followers. Meanwhile, real holy teachers or masters, etc., never charge for their spiritual services, only perhaps for supporting products like accommodation, food, photos, literature, or artifacts, etc., that have a cost associated with their production and handling, etc., receipt of which is always used solely for seva, selfless service, or the functioning of the spiritual or humanitarian organization, and never for personal use. Thus, one can see a clear difference between the various holy and unholy teachers, etc., who perform this role. Indeed, armed with this knowledge, it is now in the fate or understanding of the truth seeker as to which level of teaching and teacher they prefer. To conclude this brief talk, it must be noted that most fundamental truth of life, of our human life need, is that everyone wants to be happy. Most want to find meaning in their life, and all want to end their suffering or have peace of mind. This is a universal desire for all human beings, whatever their background, culture, race, gender, age, or status, etc. Now, in this world, created belief systems, whether religious, philosophical, scientific, or socio-political, etc., variously exist to offer a possible man-made solution, else they would not be necessary. Indeed, so important is this need for a solution that humankind has created and honed these belief systems in order to satisfy their particular desire or understanding in accord with the nature of the society they subscribe to. Therefore, these solutions express the cultural differences that we are all familiar with today, such as tribalism, religion, or spirituality on one hand, and superstition, philosophy, or science on the other, both of which operate alongside the more egocentric ideas of self-determination, anarchism, socialism, or elitism, social politics, for secular others. Furthermore, the society we're born into or adopt conditions our life story, which is self-determined by our past deeds and thoughts, past karmas, while our individual characteristics as a person are formed from our samskars, past impressions and experiences from former lives, that has become our character today. Now, out of all of these solutions available to us, holy masters, perfect saints, and noble mystics all say that true spirituality or true religion is the only safe and permanent solution. This is because it uniquely answers all our queries. First, about our problems of existence in life, satisfactory for the mind, and then actual comfort to the soul, through the soul's spiritual awakening and empowerment, leading to salvation. No other belief system offers this so well and so completely. So let me end this long answer, by quoting a great holy master from the past, known as Great Master Baba Savan Singh Ji of Radhaswami Satsang Bias in India, who says this, and I begin quote, "For true salvation, a seeker must find a perfect saint from 3rd to 5th realm level, else an imperfect sad of 1st to 2nd realm salvation for those who need mental support can be sought, and one should earnestly continue their efforts till they meet such a one. Should they come across a perfect Sant Satsangi, meaning devotee, who has been fully benefited by the Sant's darshan, meaning direct contact, and seva, meaning service, and having been initiated, meaning spiritually awakened, in Shabad Marg, meaning way of the Shabad or creative power, is performing abhyas, meaning devout spiritual practice, the seeker should engender love for such a devotee. They should learn from them the secrets of the path and the stages thereon, and the method of performing spiritual practice. They should then commence this practice, adopting the isht, or inner desire, of the darshan of the perfect saint of their time, who is the living manifestation of the true Lord of all. A true paramathi, meaning seeker, should have a firm resolve to reach the highest goal. Indeed, if their love, yearning and faith is sincere and firm, the true Supreme Being would, in His grace, grant them His darshan one day and complete the task. Then nothing else needs to be performed. Love and devotion to the truth embodied within a perfect Sant is the only solution." End of quote. Now, I hope this brief talk answers this question fully, but if anyone here has any further queries, then please ask now before we continue. Yes, go ahead.
I know you mentioned the 7 characteristics.
Yes.
So you'll know whether it's a
Yes. This is the historic test,
Yeah.
not my test. This is a historic test devised in the past, because obviously in the past many seekers had the same inquiry. How do we know at what level somebody is at, who they are? Because they don't say anything, they just give their teaching. and they proclaim that they teach what they know. So how could we as human beings recognize? So that's the reason for the historic test.
Are you able to name any that we might not be familiar with, that we didn't realise they were there?
You do not know them. There have been hundreds of saints that have come into history, known only in their local area, who you do not know. So if I speak to the people of the Hansa Valley, I could quote a saint from them. But it would be not known to anyone outside, so it has no meaning.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, sorry.
We talk about characteristics of perfect living masters,
Yes.
but the Satgurus also have the same characteristics. Those who reach the fourth stage also have the same.
Not the same. Because they cannot perform all seven. In other words, they cannot describe such kind and beyond. They cannot explain the all-knowing. And also, they would not be all-knowing.
But perfect living masters very rarely explain such kind.
What I'm saying is that a perfect Sant Sadguru will describe all the levels, or be able to describe all the levels, up to the fifth plus, if asked. If they're not asked, why would they say anything? They would not even talk about this world if not asked.
So if I was to ask Babaji about the such kind, most likely answer would be, it's beyond understanding.
He would say that.
But so can a fourth level master say the same thing?
He could say that, but all seven criteria must be met. Now, these seven criteria has been used historically as a means, but it's not perfect. For example, a really good actor, who say a Satguru, can seem to perform this, but when watched closely over a period of time, one or other test will fail. It's not like you just simply ask them the question. This is observational. So that the historic test was meant that traditionally, this is what was done at the time of Guru Nanak. You weren't initiated straight away. So if you went to Guru Nanak and said, please initiate me, he said, okay, wait 7 years. Yeah? A disciple had to wait 7 years for initiation. Why? Because unless he was of a very high-ranking individual and immediately recognized the master, he had to be put through the test of recognizing what they were getting. Because Guru Nanak assured them that in this lifetime they would be saved. So therefore, they have to be of that caliber. They have to be absolutely sure that true bhakti can occur. You have to remember that, let's say Guru Nanak went through a particular town only once in his life. He may have initiated a few people who never saw that master again. So therefore there's no support mechanism to keep the faith going. That person had to be of a certain caliber to recognize so surely what they saw that even if they never see that again, they will do the practice to see it within. So yes, these tests, I've just simply listed it, but in actual fact they were lived through, they were observed over time. Yeah.
So, for example, you have like the offshoots of Radha Swami.
Yes.
So you got offshoots
Yes.
from Swamiji and from
Yes.
Sahib Singh.
Yes.
For example, Kripal Singh.
Yes.
Yeah. If I was to listen to Kripal Singh, to me he's a master.
You know, when you look at, I'm not going to say anything about any particular
Yeah.
individual,
Okay.
but when you look closely at the 7 rules over a period of time, up to 7 years, you will find yes or no. You'll find something lacking or not lacking. They will not pass the test. This has to be a consistent, upheld way of life in every manner. Now, when a certain thing is done or said and so on, it's very difficult for, let's say, an unenlightened individual or non-truth seeker to find the truth simply this way. There is something else at hand which I haven't mentioned, which is grace. Let's say you're a really earnest, sincere truth seeker, no matter what the cost. Like Guru Gobind Singh said, are you prepared to cut off your head and hand it to the Master's feet? Do you really think the Supreme Lord will allow you to be misled? The evidence you need will be shown before you. The errors, the mistakes, the whatever will be presented towards you, and you will not be able to follow that one because you're marked for a perfect living saint. So you have to understand that behind all of this, there is another element, which is the true Lord itself. Therefore, you can dismiss the list of 7, because this is for ordinary individuals, let's say, and an extraordinary truth seeker who is hell-bent on securing the truth, no matter what the cost. This is equally rare as a master, I would say, but no matter what the cost, they would be directly given that knowledge through the Lord itself. They'll recognize it within their heart as intuition. No tests need to be applied. So this is for information purposes for the vast majority of ordinary individuals who hear so many different masters out there. So they can narrow it down to those who at least fulfill the test. Then they have to rely on the Lord's grace to decide who is the master for them. So ultimately it's the Lord's grace that decides this, not the test. But the test is a way of narrowing down. I have many people emailing me saying that we heard this speaker, we heard he sounded really good, is he a holy master? And I said to them, here's the 7 tests. Do they fulfill all of these? Yes, then at least they are in the category, even if they're not perfect, because you have imperfect holy masters or masters in the making. Now, to then decide who is the master for you, the Lord has to intervene if you're a true seeker.
But those who are following these offshoots
Yes.
of RS,
Yes.
and I've read some of their books and listened to their talks,
Yes.
I cannot see a difference.
Because they copy the principle. As I mentioned in the satsang, a lot of teachers will simply copy the terms and terminologies used by the preachers, but they offer nothing of their own. So they parrot fashion what they have already learned. But for the vast majority of ordinary humans who are ignorant in comparison, it is a marvel to them. But when you push them more specific things, and even prophecy and things like that, then they fail the test.
But you read their books and they talk about Sachkhand and beyond.
I could write a Guru Granth Sahib by copying the Guru Granth Sahib and changing it. What does it prove? If I introduce nothing new, or if I don't pass the test of prophecy, the ability to tell the future even, let's say, what is to come, warn people ahead of time, that is something mostly they fail on actually. And it's one of the key tests at the time of Jesus. Let's say, for example, the masters of the Levant, Persia, was the test of prophecy. In fact, for them, that was the highest ranking of the tests. Yeah, because only somebody who knew what is to come must be a prophet, must be somebody highly elevated. So nobody else can do that. They can read the scriptures, they can memorize it back to front. You know, they can explain it, but they not necessarily know. So these tests are robust when understood and applied correctly. But at the same time, this will only narrow it down to a core group. And once you've got a core group of masters you think may, because you don't know their every circumstance, you think may fall into that category, then you have to trust the Lord. Say, oh Lord, Supreme Lord, I'm a real truth seeker, no matter what the cost, meaning I'm prepared for anything you throw at me. And Babaji himself says, be careful what you ask for. Very few will dare to ask such a thing. He said, now show me the way such a one is led.
We can agree that even though, like for those offshoots, people who follow them, they're sincere seekers.
They are sincere to a point.
Okay. So
you see, there's this thing, no matter what the cost. You know, around the time of Guru Gobind Singh, okay, he had 1,000 disciples. And his famous collecting of the Panch Biharis on the river there, you know, when he said, who will follow me? They said, we will follow you. Then he gave them the test to get the 5 with a sword, a very well-known story. Only 5 came forward out of the thousands. Now, if you look at them as an observer, you say, wow, they're really sincere. They're all banner waving and saber rattling and everything. But only 5 were prepared to cut off their head. Yes? So we could say, out of the multitude, only 5 were sincere. So this is the same. When you have people following a certain level of spiritual path, it's because within them, that is their level.
Yeah,
that is their level of desire.
We can say the same thing about those who follow perfect living masters. How many are sincere? It's the same difference.
You're right. The difference is that their time has not come. For example, when a master, as I've mentioned in the satsang as well, another part to this is how does a master select a disciple and put them onto the path. Now, let's say you look at the Radha-swamis, you'll meet all types of disciples. Some of them worse than the non-disciples, some of them very noble. How is this possible? It seems like the screening feature has failed. You know, when you look at it from a karmic point of view, when you look at it from a human character point of view. But the selection criteria is different from a holy master than it is from a karmic visitor. So the holy master looks at the position of the soul, how far they've gone through their evolutionary journey in creation, and if they're on the ascending journey. No matter what they may be doing at the time, they could be a villain, They could be a saint, they could be an ordinary factory worker, and nobody. But if their soul is ascending, and such a one is therefore being spiritually empowered from within, awakened, they're going to start seeking the truth within. That truth seeker is not of mind. It is a need within them, an uncontrolled feeling that puts them onto the path. But their mind has not yet come on board. So, when such a one is initiated, they may be of bad character. They may have all kinds of things associated with them, but nevertheless, their soul is ascending upwards. Now, they'll have to account for all of that and be cleansed. You know, for example, if we have a diamond in the rough, a diamond in the mud, right, is caked in mud. Now, if you're a wise man, you would say, that's a diamond in the rough. All I have to do is wash it clean. Yes? But if you're not so wise, and you're a mass public judgment person, you say that's a mud, it's a ball of mud. What use is there? So what if there's a stone in it? It's just a ball of mud. I can't see past the mud. Fortunately, masters do see past. They never initiate anybody based upon their character, because then there'll be no satsangis. No one would pass the test. Yes? The time of Guru Nanak, when they did this 7-year test, was some way of testing the devotees, but that was for a specific reason. Because there wasn't this ability now we have of a internet, where Babaji can produce videos to keep the people on track. Yeah, there was no possibility then. So he had to initiate the highest caliber individuals only. So in Sant Mat, even Radhaswami's Sant Mat, there are some high caliber individuals mixed among the pebbles, right? Diamonds among the pebbles, right? But they keep away. They do not get involved with the masses. They're the ones who you'll see hiding away in the corner, or not even coming to satsangs, or not even going. They are absorbed in inner bliss. They are absorbed in their spiritual practice, where they find comfort in solitude, because they have the master with them. They enjoy solitude. Those ones who like to go to gatherings don't have that inner solitude peace. They don't see the master, so they meet the multitude. Yes.
Okay, so those who have reached the fourth stage, they have still been initiated from perfect living masters.
Yes.
So at what point do they become a master of the fourth stage?
They are.
Why
they are master of the fourth stage. They could be classed as an imperfect master, as I mentioned earlier. Anything up to the fifth, is from third to fourth, is an imperfect master. They're a master because they're above the karmic realms. Therefore, they have knowledge of the soul directly, and they can speak of the matters concerning the soul. But they cannot liberate anyone to the fifth realm. They can only help people to their level.
Yeah, but so at what point did they become a type of master? So we call them Satgurus.
Yes.
They've reached the fourth stage.
Yes.
So what's given them the authority to become a Satgurus? If they've been initiated just like every other disciple,
Yes.
why haven't they continued on to the fifth stage? Why at that
Well,
point somebody stopped them and says,
I think you misunderstand what initiation is. Initiation is to put somebody onto the path, no matter what their level. So let's say they're in the second realm when they're initiated, or the first realm, astral level, that they've inherited from the past. So they put onto the path. And in this life, because of their past merits, they attain the fourth. Right? But they had enough karma to bring them into this world. So now they're born into this world, they attain the fourth. But they haven't completed their journey in this lifetime. It doesn't mean that they have to come back here, because as a fourth level, they don't have to come back. They can carry on from the spiritual realms.
But who's given them the authority to have satsangs and have followers and initiate?
It could be the master, and they could be supporting the master.
So
The masters do not discriminate against teachers. They simply point out the level of the teaching that they can offer. So, for example, a Satguru, one who's of the third or fourth level, they're both classed as Satguru, which means they have crossed the realm of mind and Maya. Such a one can give teachings, help, support, and offer many things, even a little bit of a blessing and so on, but they cannot save anyone to Satkhand. They cannot take anyone to their true home, and nor do they claim to do so. The famous one, there are several famous master, was the Holy Master in India that Ishwarji speaks about, who was the master who says, I know nothing.
Fakir Chand.
That's right, Fakir Chand, the famous Fakir Chand, yeah? He was an honest Sadguru. And he said, I know nothing. The reason why he's hailed and mentioned even in Sant compared to others is because of his honesty. He was a Satguru of honesty because he was not all-knowing. He had not reached that stage, but he was high caliber, no doubt. So he had a following. He had people who followed him, but he was honest with them.
But should they be initiating?
You can initiate somebody at the 3rd level. But that initiation does not take you to Satgurus.
Yeah, but the bit I get confused with is they are initiated from perfect living masters.
Yes.
Yeah. So, for example.
Well, Fakir Chand, that's another question about.
From Baba Sahib.
Yeah, about his initiation and what he did with it. But let's say Great Master was not unhappy with what he was doing.
So
He was supporting Great Master in his role. And Great Master knew that he will be helping disciples clean them up a little bit so that he can come back again and be initiated by a perfect living master. There's no harm in that.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. So they are playing a role on.
Yes.
So
Of
even
course.
though offshoots of Radhaswami
Yes.
have been given the authority
Yes.
to play that role.
Not necessarily. No, that's the difficulty. Because unless the master themselves has initiated them and told them what to do, you cannot know as an individual. You can only do one or two things. You can look at the 7 tests and see how close they follow to narrow down the group. And from there, you ask the grace.
So
There is no way you can know.
So it's possible they've gone against the master.
Nobody can go against the master, but they cannot offer what the master can offer. You understand? Everything is within the Supreme Lord's will. Everything. Hukam only. Hukam is everything. There's nothing but the Lord's will in creation. Now you, as a thinking, emotionally biased human being, like to apply intellect and emotion into every query without understanding the bigger picture. From the master's point of view, there are many levels of disciples, and therefore there have to be many levels of saviors up to the highest. There's no problem with that from the higher perspective. So if you understand this, that there are different levels of teachers to meet different levels of disciples, then that disciple will go to that level of teacher they feel most comfortable with. It doesn't mean it's bad. We forget this good and bad. This is a journey.
I'm not saying it's good about it, I'm just trying
Yes.
to understand it.
It's a journey. And therefore the journey of the individual is through these stages.
You can't say it's bad because they're making people vegetarian, they're making people follow a path
Then
of sorts.
it speaks for itself.
So all I wanted to know is whether or not they have the authority to initiate.
Maybe not necessarily, but I'm not going to comment who does and who doesn't. But I'm saying that when a totally honest one who tells the truth, which is a rare individual, they will tell you the truth. If they hide from it or do not or skirt the issue, or they may not be completely honest. And therefore such a one may not divulge unless asked directly, but they may not be of that level that they claim to be or that others put them to be. They may claim nothing. They should let others carry them. There's that type too. You say, okay, this is something, this one is something, yeah, we're going to follow him. But he never himself said I was anything. There's that too.
It seems a bit of a trap as well.
Not really, because each one meets the level of master that is suitable to their level of desire, comprehension and ability. It is a school, right? This is a big school here on earth with many classes of levels from nursery to professorship. We cannot say that if somebody's going to the nursery, why are they bothering when there's a professor around the corner? It meets their level of knowledge. Don't judge. Don't judge these ones. They're all performing their role. The Lord knows exactly how this creation is structured and everybody's following that line. You have been initiated by a perfect living master. Concentrate on your own practice and prove to yourself that the master who initiated you is true to you. That is the ultimate truth by going within. Otherwise you cannot even comment on that.
Just one last one.
Yes.
Those who are not initiated by perfect living masters but reach like the 4th stage.
They can't reach the 4th stage.
Have they, so
You can't go beyond the 2nd stage if you're not initiated by a perfect living master.
okay, let's say those who have a master and they reach the 4th stage.
Yes.
For example, those who are stuck in the whirling cave.
Yes.
We're told is the whirling cave.
Yes.
Now they have gone beyond Paul's realms.
Yes.
why do they need to return back to Carl's realm if they've gone beyond mind?
They don't need to come back to Carl's realm unless they choose to. They have the option. So when you... I'm not going to go too long into this answer. This is a conversation for another time about what happens in the spiritual realms at each level concerning a disciple. But let's just say, when they have attained that, they have full control over all the events. They're not bound by karma. Yet, they're also bound by certain rules, higher rules of the soul. So that means that they have to come back in some form or another, or they maintain their status there and carrying on. Because if they're initiated by a perfect living master, they can simply stay for how long it takes in the fourth realm to accomplish that goal. Because the perfect living master comes from the fifth, so they can join them there. In fact, they already merged with the master at the fourth level. But it's just that journey is not complete, so they are completing the journey from there. They don't have to come back. But let's say, because part of the plan for them is that they come back into the karmic creation by liberating a soul associated with them, and they have a strong connection here historically. So they come back here, and then they become a Satguru from here. That happens.
Ishwapuri said in one of his talks that there are many souls who have reached the fourth stage without a master.
You know,
and they've asked for the master who can, like say Ishwapuri, to take them further, and Ishwapuri said, no, you have to go back into
let me explain about this concept of the third and fourth level. Now, these levels of consciousness exist where, for example, you get a glimpse of this before you've attained it. One famous example was Baba Jamail Singh. Now, he wasn't sailing in the higher realms, but he had a glimpse of it. He was being provided with something before he attained it. This is not the same thing. Although some people may think, so what Ishwiji is referring to is not those who are actually at the level of fourth level, but they have a glimpse, a connection there. Their journey they see ahead. It's like if I'm sitting here and I can see the shoreline ahead of me 10 miles. I'm not at the shoreline, but I see it. I can describe it. I can say, but I'm not there. That's the difference. The difference is being actually there, which can only happen by a perfect living master, or having the ability to see ahead because of such good merit. Yes, you can get a glimpse, which is the Supreme Lord's preview to help you for certain individuals. So
they're still in the three worlds.
They're still in the three worlds.
That's what I wanted to know.
Because they're here physically, but they are able to glimpse ahead. But masters give this to satsangis as well. You have satsangis who are just on the astral level, but they're already glimpsing the fourth level. They can see, they're given a glimpse, a preview, which is then withdrawn. And that's why the great master said to one disciple, after having given her the preview, he said, right, now you've seen all this, it's going to take you 20 years to get there. Of spiritual practice. You see? So, yes, this path is extraordinary. I would say keep it simple. Just follow what you've been told to do. All this will become aware to you. Because what I'm explaining to you is something way beyond normal human understanding of how things work on earth. You have to understand from the Lord's point of view, he operates very differently to the way we logically try to work things out. There's no logic or rhyme or reason here. There is an understanding, but if you get too involved in these intellectual games, you're not going to do your spiritual practice. You're just going to boost the ego and the understanding, and you're going to think, yes, I'm settled now, I'm satisfied, I don't need to do anything. I feel I have the answers, but you're not there. The difference between seeing something ahead and actually being there is completely different. So that's why Babaji says, do the practice and get there. Because many people say, yes, I know everything, I have great knowledge now, I don't need to do anything, I'll just wait and so on. But that's not the same as actually knowing about something, not the same as experiencing it, being there. So true Holy Masters say, you must get there to be truly liberated. Mere knowledge about it is not enough. Okay? Anyway, I think we should move on to give somebody else a chance. Yes, so you're going to ask another question.
Yeah, you mentioned about the Perfect Living Master appointing support Perfect Living Master.
Yes,
so,
yes.
for example, When Master Ching Hai isn't there on the day to initiate, she'll send a representative. Is that an example of a...
Not really. The
Okay.
representatives, like even for, say, in Radhaswami, the representatives don't necessarily have to be highly evolved.
Right.
They don't necessarily have to be able to know greater truths, but they have to be assigned by the master to perform a particular role. And that is karmically determined. Let me explain something else. Everything that happens here on earth is karmically determined. Even the master's actions, where the master goes, how many people he sees, who is initiated. Even master does not break the law. That's why Jesus says, I have come here to uphold the law, not to break the law. Now Jesus is supposed to be the Son of God. Why can't he just change the law and just do things his own way? No. He follows the law. All masters, and Babaji emphasizes this, they do not change karma. His master says, yes, a master can change somebody's karma. He won't do it. Many people have heard that on this. He won't do it. So he has the power and the authority to do it, but he won't do it. Why? Because he's here to uphold the law. So masters do not interfere in the process and workings here. They follow it. That even means that the list that's given to them of marked souls who they're going to initiate is predetermined. They don't just whimsically meet somebody and say, hey, I'm going to initiate you. It's all predetermined. Even the master's actions, his movements, his looks, the clothes he's going to wear on a particular day are predetermined in karmic law. Masters are perfect examples of following karma perfectly, without attachment to any of it. The difference is, it's not that the masters are going outside of karmic law and they're behaving in wondrous ways, like flying through the air with their own power rather than using a vehicle, or living without food, or performing miracles. They don't do that. What it means is that they are fully aware of everything that's going on around them, and they follow the law without attachment to it. So whatever body has been given to them, wherever they are sent, whatever they're called to do, they do so without attachment to any of it. They are following their Lord's instructions to serve. A man who's a servant is not a master. He serves. That's why Babaji says, I'm here to serve you for the Sangat. If it wasn't for the Sangat, I wouldn't be a master. It's only because of you that I'm hailed a master. So masters are here to serve. We call them masters because we like to look up to people like kings and emperors. But actually a master is a co-traveler on this journey. It just so happens that that particular co-traveler is able to help others along the journey because they've got a little bit further. And when you merge with them and become with the master at the third realm, what happens to the master-disciple relationship then? It disappears.
Okay. It might not be relevant, but it just came to me. I remember when I went to get initiated by Ishwar Puriji. Then I think it was the night before, we were listening to his talk, and then somebody asked, does anyone want to get initiated? So certain people stood up. So the next day now, we're all at wherever we are to get initiated. But what happened was, let's say there's about 100 people there. Only 50 people, for example, were getting initiated that day, and the other 50 weren't. So I'm thinking, how come they went there to get initiated, but only half of them? What happened there?
It's similar to this fellow at the back who asked his question. You see, the choice that's made is not based upon their karma. Let's just make an extreme example here. Let's say you had 50 good disciples, good kind of followers, and you had 50 bad followers. And the 50 bad ones were initiated, and the 50 good ones were not. Let's give that example, right? What basis then does a master decide who is to be initiated? Because it's not based upon their character. It's based upon their journey through existence, and their time is up. When the time is up, no matter what character they may be, they could be a king or a beggar, they could be anything. They're now called into the company of the saint to be initiated. It's not based upon the character, because the character is illusion, it's Maya. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's part of the drama and the play.
That's where I was going, because I'm thinking, why karmically were they led to that place when it wasn't going to happen for them anyway? Is that the drama?
Yes,
Wow.
it's part of their drama of life.
Okay.
Yeah?
It's a bit
So we're
mean,
undergoing... No, because the fact that they're coming to the company of a saint means that they're going to be initiated at some point. It's just
Okay.
not that day.
Right. That feels nicer. I feel better
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Because I did feel for them, you know, on
Yes.
that day. Okay. Question 2 now.
Go, yes.
How does a perfect living master assume their role? For example, is it lineage, is it divine intervention, or something else?
You see, I mean, from a human perspective, let's look at it from a human perspective. Most of the masters we know of follow some sort of lineage, you know, so they're appointed by a previous master, which is absolute proof. Okay, there's no controversy about that, because if you accept the previous master's authority, then whatever he says must carry that authority too. And we call that a lineage, which is a one method in which perfect living masters give in their role. But that's not the only way. In fact, historically, mostly that did not happen. You will be surprised how many times that did not happen. So now you looked at the second part, divine intervention. You see, because this is an individual connection between the disciple, the chela, and the Lord itself, then this established connection does not need an intermediary as such in the initial stages. When somebody has already attained that level in the past of awareness beyond the mind and Maya, but they're born here to continue their journey because they're marked to be holy masters. So therefore they come back here in the same method of borrowing a body and so on to come here. They may not follow a lineage. What happens is they're placed in a region where most souls are crying out for a holy master, but because there's no actual lineage in that place, so therefore that obviously the person who's thousands of miles away in another land who has his surrounding lineage cannot save those ones there. So the Lord sends their beloved devotees, the ones who've attained that level. They are masters in the making, let's say, and eventually become masters. So they're born into a particular area and start off as a human being because they've taken a karmic body. So they follow the karma of that particular individual, whether it's good or bad, but mostly it's good. But it may not be good. But they are slowly through their own inner practice. So for example, these people will start meditating on their own, even without a master. They'll follow local teachers. But this is another interesting twist to the tale, just to confuse even further. Let's say such a holy master is born in an area where there's no holy master. Okay, so there's no one there to initiate them of the highest order. How do they become a holy master? Okay, because what happens is this: there's one supreme consciousness in creation that pervades everywhere and manifests in all forms. Now, for those individuals, they can go to, say, a spiritual teacher. And I'm going to give you an example of this, a very famous example, but let me tell you the idea. And they ask them for initiation because they heard that is the way forward. But it may be that the person they're asking for initiation is only a second level master, and they're already of the third and the fourth. So they're now having to surrender themselves to this second level master. How is it possible then for them to suddenly raise to the highest level and become a fifth level master? Because of this, it's not even about the initiation. Let me tell you, there are other universes where no initiation is necessary. It's simply an earnest desire, no matter what the cost, to seek the truth. You don't need to be then initiated. If you're one of those extraordinary, unique individuals in that world, you go to that level of your desire, what you're prepared to put up with. Okay, put that to one side. In this world, such a devotee who's prepared to give up everything far beyond what the local teachers are teaching in order to attain absolute truth, such an individual is an extraordinary individual, because they're exceeding even the teachers of the area. However, the law must prevail. Remember, Jesus said, and so does Babaji, we must follow the law. The law says they must be initiated by somebody. It doesn't matter who they are, as long as there's somebody who's initiating, somebody who's purported to be a spiritual teacher. Right, now the famous example I'm going to quote to you is Kabir Sahib. Kabir Sahib was a very devotional being from a young age, and he heard about initiation from a perfect living master. That is the ultimate goal. But there was none in his area. There's nobody around in Varanasi where he was. They're all sadhus and sages and munis and beers and all of these people, yeah? They're all practicing along the river bank in the sacred town of Varanasi. So he had to get initiated, because in order for him to progress further, the law states, the karmic law, the universal law states that you have to be initiated by somebody, right? That is the method here. Like rules of a chess game have to be observed to win the chess game. You can question another time why this particular rule exists in this particular universe. You can go and ask the Lord about that, but there's every version of it. But this particular version, this is the rule that you're born into. So he had to find somebody to be initiated. But the greatest teacher he could find was somebody called Narayananda and Ramakrishna. So he went to get initiated by him. He sat in his satsang and he was turned down every time, because Ramakrishna knew that he was not marked for him in order to take him to what he wanted. So he tried every trick in the book, and eventually, because Kabir knew that this was the only way to get initiated by somebody of a reasonable caliber, and he'd chosen him, let's say, who felt a connection with him, he heard that if a master touches you physically, right, and makes direct contact with you, and you're a chela, a devotee looking up to them, then that's initiation. Okay? So what he did was, he knew that Ramakrishna would come out early in the morning, about 5 o'clock, for his bathing in the river. And it was dark at that time. So he lay on the steps, covered himself with some clothes, right, to disguise himself, right in the way of the master. So the master had to step on him in order to get to the river. So when he stepped on Kabir Sahib, Kabir jumped and said, Master, thank you for initiating me. Yeah? And of course, then he was initiated. But as the story goes, eventually he liberated his own master, in which Ramakrishna is such a gracious soul that he admitted to his entire Sangha, who had thousands of followers, imagine in Varanasi, he said, I am nothing. He has liberated me. This disciple, my chela, has liberated me. He said, from now on, I'm not longer going to serve you, serve him. And he gave up everything. So that shows you why Kabir had a connection with him. So although he was a second level master, he was a real seeker. He was on his upward journey. He had that inner desire. Doesn't matter what he was doing publicly outside. He had that inner desire for the truth. Kabir recognized that. So Kabir chose him as a master so that he could liberate his own master. So how about that for confusion? Right,
okay.
Let's go.
Other than initiating souls on the path of the masters, what other functions do the perfect living masters perform in this world and other universes?
Well, they only come here to liberate souls. They don't come here to do anything else. Because there are many karmic level beings who are responsible for maintaining, sustaining and progressing and overseeing the evolution of the physical world. Why do masters who are here to get us out of this world want to play any role in it? It is already decided, the evolution of the world and who's going to take part. These particular individuals only come for one purpose, for the salvation of their marked souls and nothing else. Now, while they're living here in a karmic body, they have to do something. So they work, but they may excel at something. They may even, supply technology like Babaji does with his solar panels, trying to green and solar. And that's not his function. That's part of the business karma of that particular individual, of that family and that body that he's assumed. So yes, they might do something useful in the world, but that's not the reason Babaji has come. He's not come to supply India with solar panels. Yes.
So what characteristics are masters looking for when they select a body?
It's just really about location and ability to, the karmas are such that allows them to mingle. They're not too heavy. The karmas can't be too heavy. They must be of reasonable health, and they must be able to be associated with the sangha that they're targeting. So, for example, they have to be born in a particular country. Yeah, they have to have access to various things within that country. They cannot be, for example, paralyzed or blind or in some other way deficient. So the criteria really is about accessing their sangat, the potential sangat.
Are they also looking at wealth?
No.
So they don't look at the
No,
wealth?
if that was the case, what about poor Ravidas, the cobbler saint? You know, he was a poor man outside the great palace, the Rajput palace.
But they are masters who who are chosen a body, a karma of someone who's wealthy.
No,
No?
that's not the criteria. The criteria is nor intellect, nor family. No, the criteria is, does that body meet the requirements to allow them to access freely their chosen sangha?
I don't mean wealth as in like wealth for the self. I mean wealth for the sangat.
No, that's not a criteria. If that was the case, then most of the past masters who are very poor would have chosen wealthy bodies.
But then let's look at Babaji, for example.
Babaji is wealthy because the family he's inherited into, he's born into, are wealthy. They have landowners, they were landowners. So he's inherited the family wealth and he's developed it
But that's still part of the character.
because of the karma, not because Babaji is interested in that. He's performing his karmic role. He has to be here, there, sign this deal, do this thing, so on. That's all part of the living circumstances, but he does it all well. He does it all with the right understanding, the right objective, a perfect example of somebody, whether in business or not in business, performing their duties perfectly well. And that is the example you can take from that, not the wealth part of it. That's incidental.
But the wealth part of it and of that character or that body they've chosen has assisted him into doing what he's doing.
Not necessarily, no.
No?
It's not that that's the reason for it.
I'm not saying it's the reason.
Because if he was, but that's it, that question is muted. It's not relevant to anything spiritual. This is a karmic body that's been used to access the sangha, whether it's wealthy or not. Let's leave it at that. Babaji certainly did not select that body because of wealth.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, the fact that the wealth is there, it allows him to see the rich and famous who go to Babaji, for example, how he handles that wealth, rightly so. So that's another example. And that's his living example is an example of how one should live in the world, you know. But he wasn't always in that position. He used to work in Spain, you know, as a watch repairer.
Is it the creator or Satgurus choosing the body for them?
For a master,
Yeah,
what's the difference between the master and Satgurus?
it's the same thing.
Yes. I think we need to move away from these intellectual things, because we can go around in circles debating it, which is the realm of philosophers. They debate and debate with no conclusion. This is a practice. I would urge you, if you really have these questions pending, go within and see for yourself. I direct you to meditate and go and see. That is the best way, and that's what Babaji says. To a certain point, intellectual inquiry is okay to calm the mind and satisfy the mind, but ultimately it can never be completely satisfied by mere inquiry. It'll always raise a question, why? Okay. And the ultimate is hukam, the Lord's will. Hey, let's just leave it at that. Guru Nanak had it very smart, you see. When he had many inquiries of intellectual, he said hukam. So everywhere in his Bani he talks about hukam. And that's how you got out of it. The Lord's will, don't ask me. Yeah, I'm here to help you with salvation. Okay? Yes, go ahead.
There's a second part to that question. Can the world and other universes survive without any perfect living master?
Sorry, can this world?
Can the world and other universes
Yes,
survive?
because masters don't get involved in the day-to-day running of the world. That's left to the deities.
Okay. What are the best things that we can learn from a perfect living master?
Follow the example. Walk in the footsteps of the saints. Be like them.
Are perfect living masters helping us more than we can fully comprehend?
Oh yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely so. In fact, your comprehension is 1% of the master's role. Masters, the rest of what he does behind the scenes is 99% of your journey. And he gives you the credit for that 1%. Yeah, you think you're making some progress, you're making some running. Actually, the secret is that the master's pulling the strings from the third realm onwards. He's pulling at the rate that you can cope with, and you think you're dancing, you think you're a noble satsanga, you think you're meditating, you think you're doing all these things. And when you put I, home, before the master says, you carry on with the I. As long as you keep the I can't pull you out of this realm. Once you surrender the I and say there's only the master, then immediately he said, I can take you out. But in the meantime, he pulls everything. But that little effort you put, that 1%, yeah, Guru Nanak was quite generous. He said 10%. Yeah, I'd say it's not even that. He was just being generous. It's less than 1% that you think you put in. In fact, it's closer to 0. But let's give you some credit. We'll give you 1%, right? That you think you're putting in. Yeah, it's all Master's grace.
I guess that ties in with the next question. Do initiates take their perfect living master for granted?
Very much so. Absolutely so. It's the plague of all perfect living masters that the Sangha simply don't know who sits before them. Because if they did, they would behave very differently.
Wow. Should I stop chasing the physical form of the perfect living master, or use every opportunity to gain his or her darshan or attention?
You see, ideally, one who's initiated, so the answer is different depending if they're initiated or not. For a non-initiate, yes, follow the master everywhere. Try to get as close as possible. Try to get as much connection until you're in a position to ask for initiation. Once you're initiated, don't worry. The job is done. You don't need it to see the master again, ever. However, let's say you're initiated and you just scrape the barrel to get into initiations. And therefore, you're of quite a low comprehension ability, low understanding, and low desire for truth. Such a one needs the constant support of Sangat, the master, the disciples. They constantly need reminding. So Master says, yes, as much as possible, try to see the physical master. But better, because the physical master can only do so much. He's limited like you. Seeing the physical master does not enhance you spiritually. Yeah, you make the mistake. It's comforting to the mind only. It does nothing else. But if you spiritually practice and you use the mind to connect to the higher awareness, that alone takes you on your journey. That's why people who follow the master everywhere, you'll see some satsangas who've been with him for 50 years, right? Followed him everywhere, and they have no inner experience. They even have a lot of questions, a lot of doubts and faith. So simply seeing the master was enough to save you that these people should be masters themselves with the amount of time they sit in front of the master, but they're no different to you. So one has to ask them, what benefit are they getting from this? It's just comfort for the mind. They're in a constant state of comforting, but they're not. It's like, for example, let's say you're ill and your mother brings you food and water and changes your clothes and you know, attends to you while you're in bed, patting you with a cold cloth, but no medicine is administered. So the whole time of your illness you're being comforted. But then the doctor comes, you see, and the doctor gives you medicine and he says take this pill and then you recover. What's the difference between the mother and the doctor then? It's a big difference. So this is the difference between connecting with the master within, which is why Babaji keeps going on about this, and seeing the physical master outside. Because the master is physical, and therefore he's limited to the physical. He can't perform miracles. By going to see the physical form of the master doesn't change your karma. He can't perform it. All it does is comfort your mind for how many hours it lasts.
But that's the thing though, because we're physical beings, we've got those characteristics.
Yes.
We look outwardly.
People start like that. But eventually, as they make spiritual progress, so as you pursue this path, you start making inquiries, slowly the attitude changes. And you start realizing that you actually want to feel that comfort in your own home. You don't want to travel at 3 o'clock in the morning, standing in a cold queue, waiting to see the physical form of Asa for 10 minutes of comfort. You start thinking, maybe there's a better way to do this, right? Because after all, I'm initiated. But for non-initiates, I can understand. But for initiate, why would they do that? It's because they don't understand what initiation is, and they don't understand what the master is, and they don't understand what they're doing. So when you say taking the master for granted and honestly, yeah, sure. You see? And all masters suffer this fate. Most of their disciples are in this position of misunderstanding.
Thank you. Why do perfect living masters have to look a certain way to please their audience?
Not necessarily so, but you see, masters have to fit into the society norm, because they're saying to you as a disciple, look, you must take part in the society you live in. In other words, don't dress outrageously or do outrageous things or behave outrageously, because that's not part of the society you're living in. You're going to disturb the energy, everything around you. That means you're not going to be able to do any spiritual progress. You'll be constantly trying to beat out the flames that you're starting. They say instead, why not just mingle in society, merge in society, be like them, but at the same time not of them. You know, have that higher awareness, but be like them. Then they can relate to you. So if a master started wearing, I don't know, flamboyant Lady Gaga clothes, people would just not be able to identify with that at all. They'll say he's a freak. But if he wears sensible clothes, in keeping with the society that he's mingling in, then people will accept him. They won't look at the clothes then. That's not a barrier. Because all the physical things a master does are barriers to the truth. We need to get past that. So he has to be as ordinary as possible, but at the same time, he has to try and meet the demand of the public. So for example, if he has to be a respectable figure, because he's a fatherhood, he's got to dress respectfully. He can't wear a hoodie and jogging bottoms, because people don't associate that type, although it's part of the society they live in, they don't associate that with authority of a master. Yeah, so they have to dress smartly. So Babaji, for example, presents himself with a bug and everything nicely, but when he's away from it, he takes the bug off and he's bald underneath. And he wears his t-shirts and jeans. But when he goes to satsang, he dresses up to look like the part.
But then you got someone like Supreme Master Ching Hai, she can dress quite flamboyant.
But that's because the type of Easterner thinking is like that.
Okay.
They have that mentality. It doesn't suit us in the West. In the West, we're horrified by that. But for Easterners, they think that's perfectly fine. Because after all, if you're this flamboyant queen of saviour, then you have to look the part. For them.
Yeah.
Not for us.
Interesting.
Okay,
this is the last question regarding perfect living masters.
Right.
Is it true that perfect living masters forgive or have mercy on sinners while other holy visitors judge so-called sinners?
That's absolutely true. That is the characteristic difference between a perfect holy master and just a karmic holy visitor. Because at first their teachings all speak about higher realms and higher existences and meditation and so on. The difference is that one comes to judge. And that's why a lot of the scriptures, particularly the Abrahamic faiths, or the scriptures of the desert people, they're very heavily based on judgment. So they believe in judgment day and that you'll be judged, and everything's about judgment and justice. Yeah, and even the law here based on justice. You go to the court for justice. Yeah, the difference is a holy master is not interested in the character. They're not part of the drama of the play. They're outside of the illusion. Why would they take part in the illusion? So they say, look, forget this character business. You're a soul of the divine. You and I are the same, of the same ilk. The difference is you're an ignorant soul and I'm an aware soul. My job is to make you aware, not to judge you. So masters forgive, in a sense. In fact, there's nothing to forgive because they don't judge you in the first place. To forgive means that there's some sort of judgment in place, yeah? But if they don't judge you, there's nothing to forgive. They simply look upon you as an individual struggling soul in creation, and you want to get out. You're ready to go out, and how they can help and facilitate that. So therefore, they're on your side. Whereas when you go to the court or the judgment realm, they're not on your side. Yeah, it's based upon, well, you're going to account for these illusory deeds that you did, and you have to be punished for something that you had no choice but to perform in your karma, right? So we're going to punish you and hold you to account for it. But that's not really you. That's like the actor playing the part in the movie and being judged in the media for that part, saying that, oh, he killed that woman in the movie, he should be taken to the court and judged. But the actor says, hold on, I was just acting. Yeah, the real me lives at home quite happily with my wife and 2 kids. There's no problem there. Why are you judging me based upon the screen movie? He said, but this is the law. This is all we understand. Whatever we see in front of us must be real, because we believe our senses implicitly. Therefore, we see the movie being played in front of us. You kill that woman, you have to go to the court and be hanged. That is the nonsense of judgment, right? But that is how it is played out here. So we have this two-tier system. Thankfully, we have the Holy Masters who don't play this game. They said, let's just get you out of here. Forget about all this nonsense. Yeah, let's get out of here. So for the Holy Masters, there's no such thing as karma. Yeah, they don't look at or consider the role of karma. That's just part of the drama that the body is going through and the mind. It's got nothing to do with what their role is. So yes, there's a big difference in their role.
Thank you. Right, I've got a question regarding Jesus Christ. So I'm going to read a question, but there's like sub-questions underneath it, like 7 parts. You'll see.
Okay, 7 parts.
Right.
Eh?
Can you please shed some light, clarify, or explain the truth about the myth surrounding Master Jesus Christ's birth, life, and death mentioned in the Holy Bible, such as A, his virgin conception and birth, as opposed to a normal conception like us?
Well, that's just a myth. It never happens. It doesn't happen in his creation. Even Jesus said, by his own admission, I have come here to uphold the law, not to break the law. And the law karma, the law he was referring to, means that you have to come here through a certain means, which you're born through the woman, and therefore there has to be a process of being born and a process of conception, and so on. So he would not break that law. So because he specifies that. So this was added later around the 4th century AD by the first scribes of the Bible, who put the Bible down under Bishop Irenaeus of Lyons, who was ascribed this thing of collecting scripture and putting together into a new religion for the Holy Roman Empire under King Constantine's command. So such things started to become introduced. They said, well, hold on a minute, if he's the Son of God, he can't be born to an ordinary woman, like the Coptic scriptures, the original scriptures say in Ethiopia, which are the true Bible scriptures, by the way, if you want to know what the real Bible is. He has to be a miracle birth. So he was miraculously conceived and born, you know. So that didn't happen. It was added much later on. And the early Christians certainly never spoke about it. In fact, if you look at the Bible itself, there's no content where the disciples themselves discuss this, indicating that this was not an event, because surely something so miraculous would have been taught. Wow, this man is not like us. You know, he's a god because he's born like this. Funnily enough, it's not included in any of the scripture, any of the Gospels, anything in the Bible itself. Yeah? It's a narrative told that this is how he came to being, but the discussion between the disciples or the other followers, nothing is mentioned of this. It's an interesting subject. So that gives you the clue that it's not true.
Thank you. So the same kind of question about clarifying or explaining his alleged early life or later life in India.
Yes, that's true. And actually, there's no mention of this in the Bible directly. It just says he disappeared between the age of 18 and 30. For those 12 years, where did he go? He just went into the desert and was not seen again for his 12 years. But the Coptic Christians have a really good account of where he went. And they speak about his journey to India. And in fact, if you did follow the Silk Road at a time, because there was the Silk Road were the main trade routes, you could say it's the main highway between the east and the west, right? The main super highway. So he walked the Silk Road. It took him 2 years. We know that because at the age of 18, when he left, he walked the Silk Road because it's mentioned in the Coptic scriptures. He went to India, he gave various teachings, he started learning from the yogis. He heard about these mystics from the east, because I don't know if you remember, there's a story about the Magi from the east coming over to bless him at his time of birth. 3 wise men, they came from the east. What is their connection? This was then later added on to the Bible that they came. That didn't happen either, where they came bearing gifts. This was added on later because they knew that he went to India for his journey. So they had these 3 magi, these 3 holy prophets from India came. They added that they came and recognized him from birth and the shooting star and all of that. None of that happened. These are all myths. In fact, these are borrowed from the Sumerian text. And there's an even older text detailing the same thing for other prophets in the Sumerian lineage. And the Bible just the scholars of the Bible at that time weren't worried about historical accuracy. They just wanted to sell their leader, right? So they just plagiarized, you could say, from the Sumerian scripts and added into their own. That's a whole other thing about how the Bible is put together. But so he did go to India, and he learned from the mystics there, and then eventually he gained that prominence, he gained a certain level of attainment, and he was able to go back and start teaching his disciples, or he started gaining disciples as a result. He wanted to teach them the way that he had learnt. And then, yes, after his death, he went back to India again, his supposed death, his faked death. He went to India again and lived another 40 or so years, and he's buried in India in Kashmir, to this day. And in fact, he's been traced there by archaeologists who follow the clues along the line and the testimonies of the tribal peoples along the way who say the prophet Isa went this way, because he wasn't called Jesus. Jesus is a Greek term. He was actually Joshua or Isa, depending on which line you follow, whether you follow the Muslim side or the Christian side, Joshua. So, and that's where the word Jesus comes from. So that's how he's recognized in the East. So yes, the answer, he did go to India before he started his mission in Palestine and after.
Thank you. Was he a vegan?
Yes, he was.
Okay. His little known marriage and family life, do you know much about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, this comes from the Coptic Christians. Jesus married Mary Magdalene, which was his wife, a number one ranking disciple, and they had a son. But the son only lived a few years, up to 10 years old, and died in Israel. So yes, he had a brother, he had two brothers in fact, he had a sister, and he had a family life. Yes, not much is described about it, and there's little bits of pieces here and there that comes up occasionally, certain lost scriptures, and they're still deciphering the Dead Sea Scrolls and other scriptures, and little bits of information are coming up, mainly again from the Coptic Christians, about Jesus' early life and about his family. And he seemed to have lived quite a normal, simple life, although he was an Essene. Now the Essenes were a particular Jewish community. They were very, very strict. They were vegan, and they ate one meal a day, and they lived very austere life. And his family, his father and so on, they came from that lineage. Yeah, and so did Mary Magdalene. So, but the church put Mary Magdalene as a prostitute who he rescued. They tried to portray as that because they couldn't stand the idea that a woman was so high-ranking in the discipleship that she was the first one to see Jesus after his so-called resurrection and so on, and then she told the others. This really grated the patriarchal society of the time, and they thought, no, how could a woman who's inferior to us have such high authority? So they demoted her to the point of a prostitute, and that's why it's quite interesting that you can see then from all of this how little they regarded the truth. It was all about promoting, and we are talking about 400 years now after Jesus left the earth, so quite a long time had passed. By that time all spirituality had been lost, and it was just about, this was a religion, this was a culture that we want to identify with, and we want to make it the best. So that, how can we tailor this scripture to suit our requirements? And that's exactly what happened,
Thank you. What about his death on the cross, the resurrection on the third day, and ascension into heaven?
Yeah, again, this was added later on. If you look at the Codex Bible, the original Bible, 400 AD, there is no mention in Matthew's account of this dying on the cross business and resurrection. It wasn't. It was added later on. So that's interesting. So the actual very early version of the Bible did not include that. Again, if you look at the Coptic Christians, who were what happened, how the Coptic, let's talk about these Coptic Christians I mentioned, about how they got about. During the time of the persecution by the Romans, when they sacked the second temple of Solomon in Jerusalem in 70 AD, a lot of the disciples of Christianity and everything had to migrate and leave the area in Palestine because they were being persecuted and killed. we hear about the Christians being thrown to the lions and all of that. That didn't actually happen like that. But the point of it was that they were being persecuted and killed because they were considered to be a threat to the empire. So they migrated south, through Egypt and settled in what we call, it was Abyssinia then, which is now Ethiopia. And they formed their own Christian church called the Coptic Christians. So they're the oldest Christian church in existence, vastly predating Catholicism. So their scripture gives an account, a detailed account of not only their journey into Ethiopia, but also the life and times of Jesus and disciples and other related people, which are not mentioned or even heard of anywhere in the modern day Bible of Christianity in the West. So these individuals kept quite good records, and every now and again they release some of this information comes forward where we could read about it. And then of course when the Dead Sea Scrolls came out, it largely echoed what they were saying, although the Dead Sea Scrolls cover large area from going back from about 200 BCE, way before Jesus. People think that the Dead Sea Scrolls are just about Jesus. No, that's a Jewish script, and it's all about Judaism from the early times to the time after Jesus. Yes.
Was Christ initiated from John the Baptist?
Yes.
And was John the Baptist the high-level master?
He well, depends what you mean by high level. He was of the karmic. He was a karmic master. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Not to offend too many Christians. He was a karmic level master.
So when Christ went to India quickly, he did not get initiation there from anybody?
He did.
From what?
He did. He was a yogi there.
From a yogi?
But it's unknown, the name to you. What difference does it make? You wouldn't have never heard of him. But he was initiated more than once in India.
And then he also went to Tibet?
He didn't actually get to Tibet. He didn't actually make it there.
Because I read somewhere there's a painting of him there.
Yeah, that's only been taken from India to Tibet, but he didn't actually get to Tibet physically.
So that's an actual painting of Christ?
Not in the painting, but there were some drawings or some attempted drawings much later on. They weren't done at the time. They were from descriptions later on, hundreds of years later, that were given, and then they drew them. But it's still nearer the time, but no, they weren't taken. He didn't stand there for a portrait, if that's what you think. No. Yes.
Do you want to say anything else about his death on the cross and the resurrection?
Yeah, I mean, that didn't happen. All of that didn't happen.
Okay.
What did happen was that he was on the cross, as the Bible says, for 6 hours, and then he fainted. And then the sympathetic centurion, who was already a devotee, a follower of Christ, because he cured his son, or helped his son with medicines. Because Jesus was also a medicine man, a herbalist. He knew about herbs. We talk about the carpenter side of it, but he was also a herbalist. He knew about herbs and treatment, so he would offer treatment. Anyway, out of gratitude, the centurion poked the side of Jesus, and of course, because Jesus had fainted, he didn't react. And then he said, "He's dead, take him down." Now, normally, it takes 3 days to die on a cross. So he was only up there for 6 hours. So he just fainted, but he ordered him to be taken down. And then, obviously, the burial, Joseph of Arimaeus, who was a rich man at the time, a friend of the family of Jesus, and he said he could use our tomb for entombing him. So they did the whole fake burial thing, where the other interesting thing is the Bible speaks that the disciples came with ointments and herbs designed to cure people, not anoint the dead. Yeah. So why would somebody bring a corpse healing medicines? Yeah. So his wounds were attended to, he was healed and everything. But for the Romans' point of view, they publicly performed an anointment, a death anointment, where he was entombed in the tomb of Arimaeus, Joseph of Arimaeus, and that's where the story came from. That's correct. But he wasn't dead, you see. But after 3 days, the tomb was open and it was gone. Now in order to allow this incredible story to be true,
he was never there in the first place, though.
He was there only for a short while.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't there for long, no.
Right.
But after 3 days, it was open. They said this and they said, that the Holy Spirit came upon, and all the soldiers were guarding it, fell asleep. And then the tomb was open very conveniently, so that he could escape. They had to make up this whole story. It's quite a remarkable story that they fantasized about his resurrection and so on. But actually what happened was that he was whisked away by his disciples, and his brother and everything, and they went to India, and he continued his mission there for some 40 plus years. Yeah.
The stories we hear regarding like the like the spear, and the Ark of the Covenant and the chalice and all.
Yes.
Is there any truth behind that, or are they just stories?
No, the spear event is not spiritual, but the spear event was the method that they chose when they took somebody down from the cross. They poked them in the side to see if they'd react. Because obviously, if I poke a sharp object in you and you're alive, you're going to flinch, aren't you? But if you're dead, you're not going to react. So that's the method that they used when they decided to take somebody down from the cross. They said, okay, they're done. We can take them down.
These things don't hold any power or anything.
No, I've never heard of the spear holding any power.
Well, because you can, because of the blood of Christ and stuff.
Oh, that's a different story. There's another story, the blood of Christ, that the Catholics invented. But anyway, let's so that's what happened to him regarding his resurrection. It never happened. And when they talk about the seeing him, on the third day he rose again, and the disciples saw him, well, particularly Mary Magdalene, and then she reported it to the disciples, and they saw him, and then again later on they saw him in the fishing lake at Galilee, and so on. These were inner visions, not outer visions. They're all of the Holy Spirit. And because he said he'll send a comforter, the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is not physical, it's spiritual. So they simply worded it in such a way that it made it look like he was physically there, but he wasn't, if you read the text carefully. But also if you look at his own sayings and everything, it was clearly a spiritual manifestation that they saw, like we have inner darshan of our master. So they were having darshan, and that's what happened to his wife.
What about the myth about his blood being used by Christians in prayers, healing and salvation?
Because there's this idea that on the Last Supper, Jesus said, drink my blood and all of this, and break the bread. So the whole Eucharist, the Christian ceremony, ritual of Eucharist, which is breaking the bread and drinking the wine and so on, comes from this idea that his blood must be. It's a medieval thing. In fact, this started quite later on, in about the 14th, 15th century. It was a recent idea that Jesus' blood must have healing powers. So there's whole ceremonies and rituals set up around that. None of it is true. Like all these things, they're all just mythological, mostly created during the medieval times when there were rampant Christianity going around, and they wanted to make Christianity so special. And they just simply invented a whole lot of stuff to make it sound special. Which worked, because for years and years and years, even today, Christians still believe these things.
Okay, the last question regarding Jesus Christ. What realm did Jesus originate from?
Well, you have to understand that Jesus was a karmic being. So therefore he came from the upper ends of the karmic realms. Yeah.
Okay. Right, moving on
Yes.
to Ishwar Puriji. Got a couple of questions around him. Ishwar Puriji often mentions that perfect living masters are friends first and masters later. However, there doesn't seem to be a possibility of a friendship with the physical master, as there's hardly any possibility of a personal interaction, since there are thousands of disciples and the master wouldn't have much time for everyday disciples. So the question is, was Ishwar Puriji referring to the friendship with the master's clone inside a disciple? And if yes, then how do we develop this friendship or interaction? Should we start by imaginatively talking with the master via our mind, having one-sided conversations initially?
Absolutely right. That's correct. They've answered their own question. Yeah, I mean, Ishwarji, let's say, has been more modern in his approach with Sadhma, explaining that we are all co-travelers, and the only difference between he's a karmic being, we're a karmic being. We all share the same thing. He had to do everything that a karmic being had to do to survive here. No difference. The difference was the level of awareness. So what he was trying to explain is that the difference between a master and, say, a deity are like avatars and munis and sages and seers and prophets. They come here with all this kind of let's say miraculous abilities and ideas of grandeur and so on, to this clear division that we are the deity and you are the mortal, and therefore you have to worship us in our mortal form in order to attain salvation. So that's where the concept of worship comes about, as opposed to devotion. If you notice that in Sant they never use the word worship, they use the word devotion. And devotion to what? Devotion to the truth that is embodied within that individual. You do not worship the body. Yeah, you worship the truth that they represent. So it's a totally different angle of approach. So what Master's trying to say is that, which is correct, is that masters, real true holy masters, are very ordinary individuals. They look like everybody. There's no difference from them physically because they're karmic beings. They could be your brother, your friend, your work colleague. You know, they could be anybody. They don't look anything different. There's nothing outstanding physically on a spiritual master. What is outstanding is their level of awareness and their authority to take you to that level of awareness. But that's all invisible. Yeah, that's not outside showing. They don't have a tattoo on them saying, "I'm holy master, you know, I'll save you." Right? It's so he's trying to say that in order to not, because they're so ordinary, in order to get a connection with their disciples, they have to act ordinarily. So therefore, what is an ordinary, pleasant connection between individuals, friends? Yeah, when you make friends with somebody, you have a pleasant connection with them. But that friend can sometimes help you. Like, let's say you meet a friend who's a particularly good maths teacher, you know, and you're learning maths, so he can help you and school you, right? But he's a friend first, you know, and a maths teacher second. So what is what you were trying to demonstrate? This type of relationship that a master has with the Sangha, that they're actually one of friends, because only as a friend can you completely let go your inhibitions and your kind of let go your fears and connect with them more deeply, and then eventually reveal to you that I was more than just a friend. So that is the route by which masters go historically. Always they never promote themselves. Look, I am a king, I am a follower, I sit on this high stage or this tool and you look up to me and worship me. No, that's not the way they do it. The public like to do that because they like kind of like worshipping something, because they feel like our life is so miserable, let's worship this thing and make our life better. Nothing to do with spirituality. They just want to have a better life, and by pleasing the gods, as historically, whether it's a volcano god, a tree god, or the thunder, or whatever it may be, they were always worshipping something to have a better life. None of them say, I want to be with you, I want to give up this life and go with you. None of them asked that. They all wanted this life to be better. You see, so that's where the concept of worship came along.
Thank you.
So worship is very different to devotion. So Master was a friend, and then he could secretly show his real truth within, and then he won't be shocked.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a few questions regarding Satguru. First question in this is, what is the difference between Satguru, Sadguru, and Guru?
Okay, we've kind of mentioned this already. A Satguru means true guru. Yes, so Sat means true, Guru means true. Now, what does it mean by a true guru? We're talking about somebody who comes from the place of high truth. So Satguru is the highest type of guru that you can have, because he is a true guru, which means he has true knowledge or complete knowledge. A Sadguru means somebody who's attained a merit. So this person has attained a certain level of merit, but not the full truth. And it could refer to anybody from the third realm to the bottom of the fifth even. Yeah. So a Sadguru is somebody who's attained a certain level of understanding and knowledge, but they're not perfect, they're not absolutely true. And a guru is simply a teacher. A guru could be anybody. You could even call your tennis instructor a guru. He's a tennis guru. Yeah, depends on what you mean by guru. So guru applies to many levels, but generally a guru is always somebody who takes you up to the second realm, maximum. Or they could be just here in the physical as a teacher.
Thank you. I think you talked about this, but I'll ask it. For every Satguru that comes into the world, a number of non-perfect gurus are sent to the world by Kal. Therefore, how can a sincere seeker recognise the Satguru?
I think we've already mentioned this in the first part of
Yeah,
it
the
quite
characteristics.
extensively, so I won't go into too much detail here, but I will explain something that for every time that a Satguru comes in, 12 paths of misleading paths will be accompanying them. This is why in Sant, for example, you'll have one nominated successor, but many offshoots of Sant to distract the seekers from the real truth. So this is why you have to be very careful, and each one claiming to be the one, you see. But this is a clever disguise. But a truth seeker, when I said earlier on about asking the true Lord, if you ask for the true Lord for help and you apply the test, the 7 tests, you will see then it will direct you to the true one.
Thank you. How many Satgurus are there in the world at present? Do you know?
Well, you know, if you're talking about initiating master, there are several masters which are not, or masters in the waiting, which are not yet initiating anybody. There's a few, quite a few, yeah, around the world. When you're talking about initiating masters, there's about 3.
Okay, thank you. And last one, kind of relative. Do incarnations of Brahm, Vishnu and Shiva still come into the world? Not
at this moment. They do come. The last event was in 1984. Since then, that's not really happened.
Thank you. I've got a question about Babaji. Babaji often seems to give practical answers to issues without empathizing too much emotionally with the questioner, who may be in an emotional state. Why is this?
Because Babaji doesn't want to emphasize emotional answers. He doesn't want to be a philosopher. He wants to give spiritual teaching as best as possible, although psychology comes a lot into play now, because a lot of the questioners have psychological issues. So Babaji answers in that format. They're not truth seekers. But occasionally you will see somebody who really wants to know. They're of a certain caliber, and you'll notice Babaji suddenly lightens up, smiles to them, or seems to be handling them in a different way to the norm. You know, and you're thinking, well, this question's been asked several times by other individuals, and it's been a very practical, psychological answer, philosophical answer almost. Yet this time he's showing more affection towards this one, because he knows each one where they're at on their journey and what sentiment that they're asking that question from. So that's why the answers may appear different, or you know, in reaction as well by Babaji to that questioner for the same type of question. But yes, Babaji is not interested in emotion. He doesn't want to endorse emotions and intellect in this spiritual inquiry. So that's why Babaji does appear quite stern and harsh when somebody's emotionally wailing and hollering in front of him, because he's not there as the comforter to just pat them. He's there to solve their problem. He's there as a doctor to give them medicine. So the medicine is the practice. Do the practice and get past all of this. But in the meantime, he has to wait for them to finish and doesn't really join them in their crying and so on, but gives a practical answer. That's why he appears that, because he's a doctor, not a nurse who pats you on the head.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you. I've got some general questions now, but there's quite a few that are relating to karma. First one. In most religions, people fast, pray and perform sacrifices for forgiveness of sins. Based on the law of karma, is there truly any real forgiveness of sins for non-initiates of a perfect living master? And can spiritual merits be used to forgive sins?
Okay, there's 2 parts to that. Let me explain to you about this concept of fasting and pilgrimages and other kinds of prayers and recitations. See, there are 4 yugas that the earth goes through in cycle. You know, from Satyug, then Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga. Yeah, and then Kali Yuga, and back around. So they go around in this cycle, 8 in total, but split into positive and negative. During each period, the method of dealing with karma was different. So, say in Satyug or in Treta Yuga, then sacrifices, penances, rituals, and so were used to offset karma, and it actually did work. It actually was the prescribed practice at the time, and there weren't really holy masters around at that time, but there was this system of karmic beings, avatars and so on, who would direct you to perform certain sacrifices now so that you didn't have to suffer it later on. You could suffer it now, in a way. You're still actually paying for it, but you're doing it by voluntary sacrifice rather than an unconditional sacrifice that you have no control over. When it comes to Kali Yuga, for example, the period which just left, is very different, because none of those particular practices actually can mitigate karma. So that's why Babaji says you can't change karma, you can't do anything about it. That hasn't always been the same. Historically, going back thousands of years, yes, that time in Satyuga and Treta Yuga, you could affect the karma. You could influence the outcome and so on of certain things, but that was also written in your destiny, in fact. But of course, they didn't know that. But nevertheless, the whole system was geared towards them kind of mitigating karma. Now Babaji says, quite rightly so, because in Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga, which was just left, you can't use any means to perform sacrifices or penances or anything to mitigate karma or forgive anything. You have to actually go through it. But that legacy going from the past has been brought today. So the ancient yogis who had mastered this system of sacrifice and ritual, really complex, difficult to perform rituals, just as well you had your karma forgiven, you should do having to perform such difficult stances. Now they've simplified it now, so you just go to the temple and you do an offering and everything. Have no spiritual significance at all. They do not affect the outcome of anybody, right? Neither do they forgive sins, nor do they affect the outcome of any event that's due to happen to you with karma. This is all for the mind. This is just another method of comforting.
Yeah.
In the absence of the saint or the absence of a holy teacher, if you perform some sort of sacrifice, let's say you see it, some sort of, you feel satisfied, that's it, you put it out of your mind. Not that anything's changed, but you don't feel so bad about it. So these things were maintained in the modern era purely as a mindful exercise. They have no power or authority to do anything at all.
Thank you.
But then the second part was spiritual merits. So spiritual merits are only earned by seeking truth. Now, if you seek the truth, whether through practice or just sincere devotion, then that carries merit. And that merit can be used to help you through the most difficult times. Not that it clears the karma, not that it eliminates it, but it reduces the impact it has on you.
Thank you. So based on the law of karma, I've got 3 questions. Is there any such thing like accidental untimely death or other random occurrences?
No, nothing is random. Nothing's accidental. We say that from our limited perspective, because we're so limited here. We do not know what's going to happen in the next 5 seconds. So everything is just a mystery. Everything appears random because we don't see the script. If we were to see the entire script laid out before us, that every breath of ours is being accounted for, then we would not ask that question.
I think you've just answered the next question. How can we know that an accidental death or occurrence is what has been written in that person's destiny?
Everything is written. Nothing happens outside of karmic law. Everything is scripted and everything follows the script perfectly. Otherwise there'll be no order. It'll be absolute chaos.
Is it true that when someone commits suicide, the astral body has to go through that episode over and over again or become a ghost?
Not exactly so, but yes, it does happen. Where, for example, hauntings, where they've died, say, tragically, or they committed suicide, but they were so obsessed with the particular location or the particular family and so on that they don't leave it. So they go into no man's land, the overlap zone. You see, there's not a clear. It's not like we just have the physical zone and then we have the astral realm. There's something called an overlap zone. And it's this overlap zone that partly exists here and partly exists in astral realm. And this overlap zone means that there is some effect here in the physical of the beings or things there, and there's some effect in the astral realm. And because of this, in certain locations, somebody tries, yes, we can see a ghost there. We say that place is haunted and so on. And that's true. It does happen. Yes.
Thank you. Many people believe in the existence of supernatural negative powers, evil spirits, witches and wizards, etc. In my culture, almost every bad negative occurrence is attributed to evil spirits based on the law of karma. Is it possible for a negative spirit to cause harm, injury, sickness, or death to others?
Okay, let's first explain what is and what isn't. Certainly, as I mentioned about the overlap zone, there are certain entities that can affect things here. You know, you call them spirits. Let's say we call them spirits, okay? Disembodied souls. Yeah? And they can affect things here because they have a connection karmic here, but only with certain individuals. It's not random. There's certain connections between that disembodied soul and that family lineage and so on. So yes, there do exist, let's say, spirits, yeah? Now, whether you classify them to evil or good really depends on what you feel about them. Now, these spirits are simply going about finishing their role here of expressing their having an emotional expression here. And actually, they're not doing it because they're trying to be evil or being good. They're just fulfilling their nature, right? How you interpret it depends on what you feel about it. So yes, that does exist. Spirits do exist, and indeed there are means to get rid of them. You know, a spirit that's connected with a certain place can be exorcised, you know, removed, and that's where in Christianity you have the priest of exorcism, you know, where they get rid of these priests, and actually it does to a point work, because this is all within the karmic realm, so they're using a karmic system and so on. Regarding wizards and witches and things like that, these are tales from the medieval times, and they started off there because they considered a person, for example, who could heal with herbs to be a wizard or even a witch. And some took it good and some took it bad. So if it was a male doing it, it was considered to be okay and wholesome because it was a man. If a woman did it, she was a witch and had to be burnt at the stake. Right? Wizards weren't burnt at the stake. They were hailed. You know, so the king would call the wizard with his herbs to treat and cure you. Whereas the woman who did exactly the same thing was burnt at the stake.
Yeah.
So that's where this concept of wizards and witches comes from. But yes, there are negative powers, negative energies that exist here, just as there are positive ones. But it depends on your karma whether you encounter them or not. They can't just randomly affect you.
Okay.
And satsanga don't need to worry, because a person who's initiated doesn't come across them. They will all stay in their distance.
So does black magic really exist, and can anyone perform it?
Again, yes, it does exist, but we're talking about bygone era. We're talking about a time, like I said, in previous yugas, when people had gained certain mastery over the elements, and therefore you could say they were black magician. But now, it doesn't really exist. This is a legacy. And people still live in fear of it because, because people who don't have any real philosophy, any other philosophy, they live in constant fear, they live superstitions and so on. But if you think about it, if a person was able to do black magic, what would be the first thing you do if you were able to perform magic? Would you bother about making that poor little old lady suffer, or would you make yourself a king and have a palace full of wealth and a pot of gold? How come all these magicians are poor? These people who do black magic, they live in difficult circumstances, they tend to live in houses, they're poor. Wouldn't you make yourself great, a king?
But
really?
But there are some people...
It's like a genie in the bottle. If you had a genie, what would you do?
But there are some people who put badness onto some people, like in certain cultures.
For what for?
Because
if you have the ability... No. If you have the ability, firstly, think about human nature, right?
I am thinking
you have nature. Money. Okay, let's say you won the lottery, right?
Yeah.
Exactly $1 million. Now, you have two options. You could spend $1 million to buy a fancy house, a car, a yacht, whatever. Or you could spend $1 million hiring somebody to assassinate that woman down the road who might have slightly offended you. What would human nature be?
I would do it for good.
No, it's not for good. You do it for yourself because it's selfish. Human beings are selfish, right?
Yeah,
they are selfish in nature. There's no question of them squandering that wealth on some remote person down the road when they'll take care of themselves first.
You'd help others, but you'd probably help yourself first.
No, you'd help yourself
first. Because you don't want to share
these
the
people would
wealth.
help themselves first, believe me. Yeah. If somebody says, I'll actually give you I'll tell you a personal story here.
Okay.
When I was in London working, I worked in this street, in this area where there was a largely kind of a Muslim and a black population. Now the black were all Christian and the Muslims were all Muslim. There was a bit of rivalry between them. Now this particular woman was terrorizing the entire street. That she was from the Muslim group and she was considered to do black magic and bringing bad luck to everybody in the street. Let's say it wasn't the most affluent area, it's quite run down. So this black family had 6 brothers, very strongly Christian, and they were friends to me. So this particular lad called Owen, nobody knows him so I can mention his name, he came to me and said, "Oh James, please help us, because this lady, she's done black magic and I crashed my car and this has happened and I lost my contract with that electrical thing and all this and she's terrorizing everybody in the street." Right? And I said, "Oh really?" Anyway, I said, "Don't worry." I said, I'll think of what I can do for you." So then he went and told her, "Oh, there's this great man at the corner of the road and he's going to put a spell on you to stop you." Right? Imagine. So she said, "Oh really? Then I'm going to do something to him. That's it. I'm going to mark him next." Right? So anyway, she was living in really poor circumstances. You know, she was in a council house, really poor, but apparently she had all these powers. Right? But she couldn't get herself out of poverty and misery. And her own husband was in jail. She couldn't get him out of jail. Right? So, you know, interesting use of these so-called powers. Anyway, tell you how this problem got solved. So then Owen came running back to me with his brother, saying, James. And these are big strapping lads. These black lads are into boxing and everything. They're big lads, right? So they were scared of this woman, right? And they said, James, oh, we've done something really bad. I said, "Well, what have you done?" They said, "We told her about you, and now she says she's going to curse you and she's going to put a spell on you and all of this." I thought, "Oh, don't worry about it," because at that time I was initiated already by Babaji. I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, just tell her, warn her that I'm like a mirror. Whatever she throws at me will bounce back onto her. So please warn her not to do this, not for my sake, but for her sake." Wow. Anyway, so she went out and did her ceremony, right? And suddenly all hell broke loose in the household. The police came, raided and arrested her. And then there was this other gang, from some Muslim gang from another area in Ilford, came over and caused problems for her. And suddenly this woman just disappeared. And so this black family all hailed me as a hero. And they told the whole street. And everybody came round with cards, thank you card. I didn't do anything. I didn't actually do anything. And they're all kind of saying, "Oh, he's the greatest," and everything, you know. And then they said there's a mystical man. So then I had all these people coming, like, you know, because I do the numerology chart. So they started coming for that. And that was one thing I could do. But they all wanted to know about their jobs, about this, the daughter not getting married, this thing. And I started having this whole string of people coming to see me, saying, "Please, can you bless this? We're going journey. We're going here. Please, can you bless us?" And I would do all this. I said, "Look," I said, "why don't you do this yourself?" I said, "Think about it. If you're asking the Lord for blessing and you're asking me, would it be more credible if you go and ask the Lord directly yourself?" I said, "Why do you need to come to me? And you asking me to do it on your behalf? That's like me saying, right, I'm going to employ you to go to work for me, but I want the wages." Yeah, you don't get the wages, I want the wages. Give it to me. So then they eventually got the idea, and that all settled. But this is an example of this lady, you know. And so yes, things exist, but nothing was happening. What was actually happening to them was the mere fear had a placebo effect. So for example, I said to Owen, "When you crashed your van, what were you thinking of at the time?" He said, "I was just worrying about what she said." And I was so involved in thinking about it that I didn't see the car and I crashed into it.
So makes sense. Yeah.
So the mentality, she was affecting the mentality of the people, and in fear they were making mistakes and putting it down to her power. They were giving her powers which she did not have. And that's how this black magic business works. It's just fear. The fear is enough to do the job. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do anything.
Interesting.
Just say, I'm going to shoot you in the morning, that person probably have a heart attack.
Still on like karma.
Okay.
I was unable to see Babaji at Haynes Park in England recently due to health issues. Does this mean I have heavy karma due to this precious missed opportunity?
No, not necessarily. You know, it doesn't mean it's heavy karma. It's their interpretation. And we spoke about the satsang is how people interpret events. So there's an event that takes place and we attribute the meaning to it, whether this is good or bad. Babaji discourages that as well. It's just their karma not to be there on that day. It doesn't mean they missed out, because the real form of master is within them. He's placed his real form within, the one that can actually help you and solve your problem. The outside master could do nothing except please the mind when you see him. So why don't they instead take this so-called precious missed opportunity to sit and meditate during the time that they would have been there? I bet they didn't do that. So then they didn't get the benefit. So they didn't get the mind comforting of visiting, and they didn't get the spiritual benefit of meditating. Perhaps they should have taken that message and say, hey, maybe you should be meditating instead.
True. Okay, I've got two last questions. In an ISTAuk online article, it says that we can be affected by certain sound frequencies. If so, it seems like this could be good support for overcoming negative tendencies of the mind. Can you recommend one or two sound frequencies and how to use them to support meditation and positive living?
Okay, they're referring to something called binaural beats. You know, and certain vibrations and frequencies that create that theta state within us, which is what happens when we meditate. And it creates that deep, it works almost like a sedative that calms you to the point where you can have more clear thinking and so on. And yes, it does affect, it's helpful in the beginning for some people, especially this is for Westerners really. And they play this music, these binaural headphones, maybe for 10-15 minutes before they sit in meditation. Yes, it can help. It can help prepare the mind, particularly for somebody who's very overactive. Mind is thinking too much, jumping all over the place. Then using binaural beats and other visualizations and things can definitely help prepare you for the meditation. But they're not a replacement.
Okay.
They're just a preparation. So they do create that calming effect that supports meditation and the results.
Would you recommend they just go on YouTube and put binaural
Yeah, they could just look for, I can't give them any specific, but there are many binaural beats. They can read up about this, about how the brain works to create this theta wave effect on the brain, which is what happens when we meditate and we're in something called samadhi. So meditation leads to something called samadhi, and the nearest feeling you can get to that euphoria is through binaural beats. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
When you search for these things on YouTube, there's different frequencies.
Yeah.
737.
Yeah, I mean, because people use the same idea for different purposes.
Which one do you recommend?
Well, I would say I'm not here to recommend these things. I'm here to suggest you look up and you think which thing sounds better to you. Depending on your own nature, you might think that a certain type of calming or a certain type of spiritual thing or a certain type of effect is what you're looking for. And then you try it for yourself. But it's not a replacement for meditation. It's just an aid to calm you down to the point where you can focus better. And it definitely does help in certain individuals who need that, definitely. Yeah. Okay,
last question. Was Bob Marley a prophet or an enlightened person in any way?
Obviously a Bob Marley fan here. He was a good singer, I would say that. No, he wasn't a prophet enlightened. He liked to smoke a certain weed that gave him a certain euphoric feeling, let's say, and then he'd just speak about whatever came to his mind. And if you consider that to be a prophet or enlightened, then so be it. From the spiritual point of view, that's not the case. That's more hallucinatory. But hey, some people are happy with hallucinations, so it's fine. But he was a good singer. Yeah.
That's it. Anyone
yes, go ahead.
Just random. Is it only initiates or perfect living masters who can pay off karma in the astral and causal plane?
No, all karmic beings pay off karma in the karmic realms.
Mark Johnson said in one of his question and answer sessions, it's only initiates who afforded that.
No. What he's talking about is when you're initiated by a perfect living master, and you want to do your meditation within. You have a choice. Again, as an initiate, the difference between the death of an individual who's a non-initiate and an initiate is when a non-initiate dies, they have to go through the karmic court, and the sentence is passed upon them, and they have no mitigation or no say about what is to happen next. So it's pretty. When you are met by the perfect living master, the same record is produced in front of him, but now he gives you a choice. He says to you, how do you want to pay this karmic due? He says, do you want to continue here for 1,000 years in the astral realm, or do you want to come back down to the physical? So that choice that's given to you by the master is allowing you to pay off the remaining karma in the astral realm for an initiate. That is completely different to a being who resides, say, in the astral realm, or somebody who dies and goes to the astral realm, paying off their karmic dues, whether they're in hell, heaven, purgatory, or in some other state. So master here is referring to a completely different process.
How is one clearing karma and the causal?
How are they clearing karma? Well, that's to do with you mean for an initiate? Because again, remember, for an initiate, it is meditation. Yeah, meditation only takes you up to discreetly. After that, no meditation required. So in these realms, it's always about your meditation. Yeah, meditation and experience. Because it's not just meditation. Like master will give you a certain type of experience that you have to go through as part of the cleansing process. Okay, so it's not just about the meditation, but meditation is the key difference between a satsangi and a non-satsangi.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions before we head for a much awaited lunch? Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming, and we hope to see you next month, and hope you benefited from this long session today.
So dehi paje har ki sev bhajo gobind phul mat ja मानस जानम का एही ला